Oh my God, everything's on. I'm frightened and confused. I think it's a little too loud. Hi, everybody. It's the Stratosphere Lounge, episode number 100, with an absolutely incredible show for you this evening, including, are you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? Are you ready for this? A live audience of all kinds of miscreants and lowlifes, layabouts, all kinds of lovely, wonderful people who decided to come on down for the first of the live shows ever. So, yeah, it's actually kind of cool. I'm not getting a tremendous amount of feedback here, but little things like this don't generally surprise me. I think that mic's probably a little bit hot. We're going to start hearing the feedback. That's how it works here, by the way, everybody, in case, everybody here who's at the show tonight have seen the show a million times. So I make a mistake in real time, and then 15, 20 seconds later, everything I'm doing wrong shows up on the comment stream, and then I can realize that audio's too loud, or there's no picture, or I forgot to put on pants, whatever the case may be. But we've got actual people here tonight. We got a really fun show. We've got all kinds of stories to tell. I had the most absolutely amazing week, and it's just, I don't know. I just don't even know where I'm going to start with all this, to be perfectly honest with you. I think this thing does have a little volume. Does it? Let's see. Hey, how about that? So where do we start? Well, we got a lot of great things to do tonight. We got a lot of announcements to make. There comes the volume. We've got stories. We've got videos. The worst produced show on the internet, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be finding itself in for some trouble, along with the Hillary Clinton Jokerama. Wipe the server with a cloth comedy routine, and the ultra hilarious, I should have put all the files on Snapchat. That way they get deleted automatically. It's treason and incompetence. It's hilarious. All right. Oh, my God. I think that woman is going down. I do. I don't think she's going to make it. I think she's going down. My buddy Jeremy Boring says he thinks that she's going down because in his words, this is a presidential hit. It's a presidential hit. In his words, what he's basically saying is, since Obama basically controls the FBI, and the FBI didn't go after Holder, and the FBI didn't go after anybody, but it seems to be going after Hillary. And Jeremy's position is he doesn't want any legacy turbulence. He doesn't want the first black president to be followed by the first woman president, because that'd be another first, and he doesn't want to be bookended by the Clintons. And I don't think they're terribly fond of each other, frankly. I get the impression that they're not actually terribly fond of each other. So we'll come back to all that stuff. We're going to be taking, for our 100th episode, we're going to take actual questions from the live audience over there on the gigantic and extremely well furnished table of shame. You can see right there with the you'll be among the carrots and the M&Ms, and then you'll get to ask questions live. And if we run out of questions, which you never know, we will then go ahead and take some questions from the live YouTube stream, which we don't get to do too much of, actually. But hey, look, the record button's lit and the stream button's lit. Everybody's here and we're having fun. So I guess we might as well get into it. We've been doing so many aviation shows lately. I don't want to make it nothing but aviation, but obviously buying that long usually was a big deal for me. I think it was the last show I did. I talked about the engine failure that we had. The engine failure that all of us had together. It was fun up there with this guy, with all 11 of you or whatever's here. When we had that multiple engine problem out there together. Now, the engine failure that I had, so I'll just tell you a little bit about what happened there. And then I've got a video of some flying that I did about a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, the Sunday before last. And we'll run that because it's scenic and beautiful. And then we'll talk about the greatest single day of my life, which is the kind of the heart of the evening. And then we'll get into questions, do all kinds of fun things. So the plane... The story of the aircraft, of the Long Easy, was it came to me from a great builder I had a lot of confidence in, and he was flying out from where he built it out in Maryland, and somewhere in Kansas he flew through a rainstorm and things started running rough, and he had to land. They had to replace a cylinder, and after he replaced the cylinder, it was running a little bit of luff. It was running a little luff. That's an aviation term for misfiring. It's pronounced rough among civilians, but luff is the term that we actually prefer up in the air. Running a little luff, and backfiring a little bit, not too bad, but it passed the inspection, and a little rough, probably just need a little tuning, and so we figured we could probably solve that. And I flew him back to his home in Maryland, and I went up for that flight, that morning flight that I put up there. That was so much fun. And the next day I flew up to Tehachapi to get the rudder pedals adjusted and hung out with a great guy named Mike Zeitlin, who did the work, and got to meet, one of my idols, Mike Melville. Then I came back from the flying and did a couple touch and goes at Van Nuys, went out over Encino Reservoir, and the plane started coming apart. I thought we were going to really in some trouble there. So I landed, and as I said in the last episode, I just, it's like, I'm just going to take a chainsaw to this thing. I had so much invested in it. I was just so upset about it. But the builder said, hey, pull the cowl off, maybe something simple. You never know. And I'm like, nah. Not going to do it. I'm going to wait till we have somebody who knows what a cowling is and a propeller is. I can't identify the propeller. I'm lucky if I can identify the sharp end of the plane. So I kept everything in the hangar, and I just kind of talked myself down off of the ledge. I'd been waiting for that thing for 3 months, and finally, it shows up, and now I can't fly it. I had it for a day. So I went and had the most epic trip to Oshkosh, which I think I talked about in the last show. That was really fun. And then I came back, and so finally I was getting ready to fly a guy down here, an expert guy down here from Idaho. It was going to cost me about $1,000 just in airfare. But Mike Melville, world's first civilian astronaut, I might say, decided to come over and help me with the airplane, just take a look at it so we could figure out what it was when the real troops got down here. So we take the top cowling off. The back of the Longies has a top cowl over the engine and a bottom one under the engine. Took the top cowl off, and so we're doing like checking for stuck valves. No, it's not a stuck valve apparently. Maybe we should do a compression test, Bill. Yeah, Mike, whatever. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. You know what you're doing, but I haven't got a clue. So we're doing compression tests on the top cylinder, and we had to go out and get a little adapter from Home Depot. And we'd been at it about an hour and a half, I guess. And then he finally says, maybe we should just take the bottom cowling off and do some compression checks down there. I say, okay. So we pulled the pins out, undid all the screws, and pulled the bottom cowling out and just lowered it. And I'm not exaggerating here because I don't know how to tell these kind of stories. On the bottom of the lower cowling, arranged as if for a photograph, it's just so awful. I'm just such a... I'm a flying monkey. That's what the call sign should have been, just flying monkeys. Monkeys fly, apparently. On the bottom of the cowl were two 1.5-inch bolts and a gasket, and they were sitting there arranged perfectly. And I said to Mike, did you pull something off? And just said, no, not me. I didn't do anything. So generally, you don't want to see bolts and gaskets sitting there, especially when they're part of the engine and they're not on the engine. So Mike peers underneath the bottom of the engine, and he says, well, I know what your problem is, and you'll be flying in 20 minutes. And sure enough, we were. Who's that arm back there? Could you move over just a teeny bit? Nope, it's. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. It's you. Could you move it just a little bit? The only reason I say it is because it's like there's a spider on the wall there. It's starting to freak me out a little bit. I'm terrified of everything that I'm not creating on my own. Thank you. Thank you very much. Perfect. Just a 1/2 inch was it. So where were we? So yeah, there are these two bolts in the bottom of the engine cowling, and a gasket. And he looks underneath and he sees that the induction manifold to the number 4 cylinder is not attached. This in aviation is generally considered to be bad form because it's that manifold that's bringing air into the cylinder, and the air that's going into the cylinder from the induction manifold has fuel in it. The air that's coming into the cylinder now doesn't have any fuel in it. Now apparently, I learned an awful lot during this mechanically, and apparently it turns out that if you don't put fuel into the cylinder on an internal combustion engine and try to run it without fuel, it doesn't run as well as it does with fuel. This is one of the things that were beaten into me. Yeah, that was a novel piece of introduction. And not only was that cylinder not getting any air, but because it became the path of least resistance, because the air filter and all of the other plumbing that affects the stuff before it gets to the induction manifold, before it gets to the carburetor, meant that a lot of unfueled air was getting in the other cylinders as well. And apparently, one cylinder without fuel and 3 on half fuel makes the engine run rough. And so there's a little bit of learning that I did. So we basically, Mike just went down there and put them in, and then we torqued them up. And then we took a look at the other 6, because there's 2 per cylinder, 4 cylinders. The first 2 were loose. They were sitting on the cowling. The other 6 were loose. They weren't finger loose, but they weren't torqued as tight as they should be. Somebody here, Lord Teo, said, who did your pre-flight? We don't generally, on a pre-flight check, we don't check bolts on engines. You know, we go around, kick the tires, and we make sure the ailerons are moving and that all the hinge pins are in place and there's no water in the fuel. But we don't torque bolts on part of a pre-flight. And so what we think happened, in fact, what we know happened was when they pulled the cylinder in Kansas, they had to pull that manifold off, and there were 2 guys working on the airplane, and that's a problem. Because undoubtedly both of them thought that the other one had covered it, and they were in finger tight. They were probably more than finger tight, because they were in tight enough to pass the pre-flight inspection. But again, those bolts should never be off. So anyway, we tightened them up, and then we put the bottom cowling on, and then we hit the starter, and the thing went, and it didn't make any other noise other than just this kind of whoa, just boom. It's nice, solid bass rumble. And baby, that was a nice feeling. All those little minor backfires at low RPMs were gone, because that cylinder was sucking a little bit of uncarbureted air, and then the thing, when it really started to go to pieces, was when the clamp came off. So no harm done by anybody, you know. It's 3 weeks of flying I didn't do, but actually probably did me some good to be a little grounded and to get a little bit of perspective on the thing. But that was the true story of the migrating bolts, and makes me want to paint bolts and a gasket on the bottom and side of the cowling just as a memento. But it was a happy solution. It was a happy solution for 3 reasons. First of all, we found out what the problem was and we fixed it. Secondly, and when I say found out what the problem is, it's one thing to fix a problem and not ever know what caused it in the first place. And I'll be honest with you, that was my main concern. My primary concern was that we'd get it fixed, but we'd never know what happened. And if you never knew what happened, you're always wondering, was it going to happen again? In this particular case, Mike Melville torqued those bolts, and he said, he ought to know. Mike Melville's put 4,000 hours on his Long Easy, and he's flown it around the world, all the way around the world. And he says never had a bolt come loose like that before. So I don't expect to see that problem again. We'll see new problems, but we won't see that problem again, I don't think. So number 1, it got fixed. Number 2, we got it fixed quickly and knowing what the problem is. And number 3, it cost me $19 in parts at Home Depot and lunch with Mike Melville, hearing the most amazing stories of aviation I have ever heard in my life. And I'll tell you something, that guy, once again, he just wouldn't let me pay him. And Mike Melville, I'd like to just do a whole show on Mike. In fact, I'd like to get Mike down for a show, because Mike is the most perfect gentleman I've ever met in any field. And for a guy who's accomplished what he's accomplished and who's survived what he's survived, for him to have that kind of genuine, honest-to-God modesty is astonishing. So, yeah, so the cost of getting the engine fixed was, buying Mike Melville lunch and, hearing stories about how somebody left a wrench in the wing on a Starship prototype, and he went to apply left aileron, and he did, and then it wouldn't unapply, and the plane rolls inverted, and now he's going in inverted, and, time to shake the stick a little. Yeah, amazing guy. So the airplane is back. So I thought before we get started on our amazing weekend, where yours truly, the photographic evidence that chimps can be trained to fly, went down to Tampa and got his call sign. I thought before we went to that I might run a video that I shot just before I went down there. It was about a week ago, 2 weeks from Sunday, this coming Sunday. So this is well before I went down to Tampa, but I shot it and I didn't have a chance to get it really edited until just now. So I'm going to tee it up, and then those of you who want to see it, you're welcome to gather around. Once I get it going, I'll bring the sound back up again, and I'm going to mute the mic, and then I'm going to cue the video. And this is from a long, easy flight I took from Van Nuys over to Santa Monica via Calabasas. And one thing I have to say about this before I roll it, I'm glad I remembered this. A lot of you are going to find the music like unspeakably cheesy, which is, intentional. There's only one person who regularly watches the Stratosphere Lounge who's going to get this music besides me and my friend Fritz. Fritz, you back there? You want to come up and say hi? Oh, yeah. Come on, yeah.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
He's doing great. He's an actor. That's why I had to duck in. Frank, find your camera. There you go. Find your light. Fritz Brown and I played Little League Baseball back when we were 10 years old. So that's been, 17 years now.
And you lost.
Shut up, man. Just keep it to yourself. Next time you come up with an unscripted comment, let me just write it for you in advance, okay?
All right, I forgot about the memo.
Miserable lowlife son of a bitch. He was the meanest guy. He was the catcher on Scarlet Red, and Scarlet Red was composed of nothing but syphilis patients and drug addicts and coached by actual murderers. Remember the Parmenter brothers?
We were winners, though.
Yeah, shut up, man.
Just remember, victory.
Yeah, well, he says, they actually were winners. We went 0-10, and then I got to first base. We went 10-0, so stuff it, dude. In any event, Fritz will get this music. I'll get the music, obviously. And my friend and older brother, who I never had, who means the world to me, Phil Trick, will get the music. And the reason I like this music is because it comes from my favorite planetarium show of all time, called Long Journey of a Young God. It was done in 1973. And at the very end of that show, which is all about the Apollo program and about Apollo as the golden age on Earth and spectacular, the very end of the final scene in this movie, because Horkheimer wrote operas. He was a brilliant guy. The final scene is when we had Leonard Nimoy came in and did some audio for it. And they're going to visit Earth. They're going to go visit Earth, which has been dead for thousands, millennia. There's just nothing left but ruins of civilization. They land at Stonehenge, and there's like a capsule in Stonehenge, and it starts talking to them. But they're on their way to the solar system from their solar system. And as they fly through the solar system, they Horkheimer played this music, which is called Super Joy, from an album called Stolen Goods by Dr. Tellany. It's a kind of a 70s electronic version of Jesus, Joy of Man's Desiring, so a little bit of motivated Bach there. But I was running my first planetarium shows doing this, and to get these things to happen, to make these things really work, what you had to do was you had to I was sitting at a console kind of like this, and you'd fly the stars around over here, and the star projector would spin in the background, and then I had zoom controls here, and I'd have to bring you'd see Saturn come in, and then it would roll, and as Saturn starts rolling, you'd flip the horizontal thing upside down, then the stars would tilt the other way, and Saturn would go out, and it was so much fun. It was just just an incredible blast to do that. I did it hundreds of times, I guess, that this music means an awful lot to me. So cheesy music or not cheesy music, I don't care if you like it or not. I like it, and I bet Phil Trick likes it. That's good enough for me. So before we get started here, we're gonna mute the sound. We're gonna turn up the audio, and hopefully everything will play. And this is about 3.5 minutes of a flight in the Long Easy that we did out over Van Nuys, over Calabasas, and then from Calabasas to Santa Monica. All right, let's see if everything works here. Here we go. No show complete without something like that, and I had to save the best, the biggest, the loudest. Blow your and the best part about that feedback is, by the way, is that the audio levels were so low on the music that I know all of you turned it up as much as possible. So if you did blow your speakers, you can bill Andrew Clavin, and I'll give you the phone number and the. Oh, God, here it comes. The great thing about watching things in delay is, like, you make this horrible mistake, and then 12, 15 seconds later, you get to watch the effect. Sorry about that, kids. Sorry about that. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. That was just so much fun. And that's just giving you, like, a rough idea. Because the thing about those videos is they're videos. You know, I mean, it's really what it comes down to, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but the fact of the matter is that you watch those videos, and, you know, they're videos. It's not like being in the. It's not like being in the plane, man. Being in the plane is being in the plane. It's so much better. It's just so much better. And if you have ever flown. You know that the great thing about it is there's no reset button, and I'm going to talk about that a lot when we get to the Tampa thing, because that's really kind of the whole deal. But it's just magical, and one of the things that's really the missing the most. You're going to see this in the other videos from Tampa, that really takes a lot of the exhilaration out of it. Is there's no G loads. I mean, to some degree, what you saw on the wing there was what I saw looking out the airplane, but it's the G's. You know, when you put the nose down, you start accelerating, you come up with a big kind of a wing over. You're pulling a couple G's on the top of that, on the bottom of that turn as you're coming up, and just kind of go over around on the side and just kind of unload the wing a little bit, and you just feel yourself kind of coming out of the chair, and you just kind of held on by the straps, floating a little weightless there for a while. It's spectacular. Is what it is. Spectacular, and so. The reason I wanted to show you guys all that first was because I have to do everything in my power to make it clear to all of you out there how much this last weekend meant to me. So I'm not going to tell this story again because I've told it 1,000 times, but I'll just do the cliff notes on it. I saw the Thunderbirds when I was 5 in Bermuda flying F-100s, and I dropped my ice cream cone. It was the greatest thing I ever saw. And from the age of 5 to 17, I was getting ready to go to the Air Force. Fritz went to the Air Force Academy, too. But I didn't get to the academy. I washed out because of a vision problem in my left eye. And even though I fell into making movies, and even though being a theater major was almost certainly more fun than going to the Air Force Academy, because I had a chance to talk to Foghorn about the Air Force Academy, and on a lot of levels, it's pounded the snot out of going to the Air Force Academy. But I don't think there was ever a day in my life when I didn't want to be that. And there's a lot of other things, too, that I need to kind of preface this thing about. You know, I've been a big, needless to say, a big supporter of the military, a big defender of the military, and a proponent of so many of the values that they have. And a lot of people know that I wanted to go to the Air Force, and a lot of the reasons I wanted to go to the Air Force are the obvious reasons. I wanted to fly really fast, powerful jets aggressively and hard. I did probably 2.5, 3G turns there. These guys in F-16s are, they're pulling 7, 8, 9G turns, and they're doing it for freedom too, which doesn't suck at all. So I think everybody probably figured out that a big part of it was me flying the big, loud, fast airplanes, and it certainly was. And when I think about it, when I think about how much I wanted to be a fighter pilot, I think about flying the airplanes, and I also think about the combat aspect. I like the idea of, I'm very competitive in that way, and I wanted to go to push supersonic and shoot down communists. Seems like a fun thing to do. So that's a lot of it. But the thing I never really talked about, because I didn't think about it too much, is something that's not restricted to the Air Force. It's not restricted to fighter pilots. It's not restricted to any of that. Anybody who joins the military gets it, and other people get it too. But let's just stay with the military for a second. The thing I wanted the most, actually, out of that experience was I wanted the camaraderie. I wanted the comrades. It's a little different than friends. I wanted the the sense of belonging to a group of people who are highly skilled, trained very hard. And I've said many times to myself and to anyone who will listen, I would much, much, much rather be the dumbest, slowest, stupidest guy in a room full of people I looked up to than be, big fish in a small pond. For example, I could get a job at MSNBC and accomplish that immediately. I'd just immediately be like the shining bright light of the liberal movement. But it's much better for me to be surrounded by guys like Thomas Sowell and Rush Limbaugh and Beck, who are geniuses. I'd much rather move with people who are better than me than with people who I felt like I was better than in terms of capability. And it's not just that either. It's the camaraderie. It's the sense that these guys are together and they're a brotherhood and they're a family, and they're not just friends. They're friends that have to go out and risk their lives, sometimes on a daily basis. That's important. And what I found was, I found a sort of not a halfway ground, that's putting it a little grandly. I found that you didn't actually have to be flying combat to have that experience, and certainly I didn't anyway. And so let me tell you about the best day I ever had, I think. I had proposed when I was getting the Long Easy. A lot of guys like the Long Easies because they're little fighter jets. They look like fighters. We don't have to see the propeller, even though it's got a propeller. We don't have to look at it. The front of it looks like a fighter, and got a stick on the right, throttle on the left, way God intended, canopy, 5-point harness, and zoom. And they're pretty agile. They'll get out of there. And so there's a lot of guys in Southern California who fly Long Easies, and there's a local Long Easy squadron, and a lot of guys have call signs. And as we said on a previous episode, when I knew I was going to get the airplane, I said, I don't have a call sign. I've always wanted one. You don't get to pick your own, because if you did, it would be Lance Starkiller. That's certainly what I would go with, Ace Mockbuster or something like that. And even though the movies, which get everything wrong about everything, get fighter pilots spectacularly wrong because they portray them as a bunch of rowdy, drunken, lunatics strutting around and breaking all the rules. They're not. They do that when they're off duty. When they're on duty, they are incredibly disciplined individuals. And one of the things that I think helps the discipline of these individuals is this idea that a call sign is not something you pick for yourself to sound cool. It's picked by your comrades, by your squadron mates, and it's designed to take the wind out of you. It's designed to remind you of your shortcomings and your failures, because you can make a pretty deep hole at 850 knots, and you really need some. If you're a fighter pilot, or if you want to be a fighter pilot, confidence is usually not your problem. Overconfidence is usually your problem, and so this idea of the call sign is something to kind of take you down. And it's all a giant combination of a roast. It's like a combination of a fraternity hazing ceremony and a Dean Martin roast, and there's certainly elements of the Spanish Inquisition involved. There's physical torture involved. There's mental anguish. It's functionally the same, I would say, as let's put it this way. I've seen some of these ISIS execution videos, and there were a couple times on Saturday night when I thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind trading places with one of those guys in the orange jumpsuits, honestly. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be as hard as this is. So let me tell you what happened here. So I said I need a call sign, and let's make the Stratosphere, the Stratoloungers pick the call sign. I don't have a squadron. I don't get to fly with actual military pilots, and let's let the audience pick. And immediately, Vipercheck, who I just seen as a guy with a F-16 icon up there in the social stream on Ustream all the time, says, ignore that order. I thought he said belay that order, but I think that's a squiddy term, so I'm pretty sure I didn't use that. He said, no, just ignore it. We'll take care of this for you. And then Eisenfire, who's standing outside with his flaming sword, the guardian of the gates of hell in here, the realm of the feedback boom is had to be protected from civilian ears, obviously, said that he'd been corresponding with him as behind the scenes of the Stratosphere Lounge. It turns out that Viper 6 was actually a real guy. It wasn't just a fighter pilot. He actually pushed other fighter pilots around. Somebody just entered the call sign. Is my call sign McLovin? No, but that would have been an awesome call sign. I wish it had been. McLovin would have been awesome. Man, I wish I thought of that. So so I got to know Foghorn, and he said, well, we can put a couple guys together and we'll do a naming ceremony, and then we'll videotape it for you and we'll send it to you. And I said, oh, that'd be great. And the first weekend goes by, and he says, apparently there's more people down here who've heard of you than they thought. There's like 15 guys want to be a part of this. Do you want to come down? Do you want to get on a plane, come down to Tampa, and hang out with us, and we'll do a naming ceremony like we would if you were an actual, second lieutenant puke. And I said, yes, I will find a way to clear my schedule for that. And sure enough, I did. So I took off. I didn't have a whole lot of time, and I went down to, got on a plane at 5:30, wheels up 5:30 in the morning on Saturday. I didn't get much sleep the night before. I never do when I'm really excited about something. And probably had about 2 hours sleep, and I'm in the plane and flying down to Tampa. And they're going to have this ceremony for me. And I've told people before I went, this is before I went, that meant more to me than an Academy Award. And it really does. So I get down there and I had a 45-minute connection in Atlanta, and I thought, man, it's going to be tough. But we got to Atlanta, and the plane was there, and I was there, but the flight attendants weren't there, and that took 45 minutes and maybe an hour. So we were an hour delayed coming out of Atlanta. We land on the ground in Tampa, and I know they're going to take me flying, and I'm on the ground in Tampa, and we land, and we taxi up to the gate. I can see the gate. The gate is 17 feet away from the wingtip, but we can't go to the gate because there's lightning within 3 miles of Tampa, and they won't have anybody operate the gates. No one's allowed out on the ramps, so we sat on the airplane for another 45 minutes on the ground in Tampa, and I'm watching the sun go down and the storms move in, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just not going to get the flying in, but that's the way it goes, I guess. Needless to say, I got out of the airplane finally. On Gmail, you get your little picture. It comes with your mail, so I knew what Foghorn looked like. And first thing, let me say is, ladies and gentlemen, my God, what a disappointment! Horrific. I mean, it's like, I can't, I don't know. It's like, it's like that line from that song, somebody goes out to buy you an iced tea album and they bring you vanilla ice. That's kind of what it was like. But no, it was a terrible, terrible, horrible disappointment. You can only imagine my incredible shock and regret. Now, the thing about Foghorn is, and actually it's so profound that it's going to get an afterburner on Tuesday. The thing about Foghorn and everybody else that I met over the next day or two is how fundamentally friendly and decent and nice they are. The guy is like, he comes across as if he's like the best ever manager of a Chili's or something. Hey, how's it going? Just nicest guy in the world. Unfortunately for those sons of bitches over there who are sawing people's heads off with knives, he and other people who are also extremely friendly and lovely and nice, happy, fun people go over there and turn them into milk bombs on the infrared. They just turn into a white explosion, and that's the way it should be. I am going to do an afterburner on Tuesday called Happy Warriors, and I'm going to compare and contrast these, not just the Nazis, but these ISIL guys, these vicious, savage, raping, murdering, mean-spirited, death-loving bastards versus the friendliest, nicest, funnest guys in the world, and women, by the way. Lots of women at CENTCOM. We'll get to that in a minute. And it's astonishing to me. It's astonishing how deadly nice people can be if you start messing around with the freedom, Don't piss them off. And because we always seem so nice as a nation, people push us around, and then they get to see the other side. So that's coming. So we now there's something I have to explain because it took a little time, because I was really worried about. I really wanted to fly. It's getting to be 5:30, pushing 6, maybe even later. Getting dark out there and really stormy. So Foghorn explained to me in a previous email that one of the many magnificent parts about this naming ceremony is the idea of the presentation of the bribes. So that's a big part of it. I had about a day to prepare for the presentation of the bribes. Now, it turned out that there were a number of people who'd been on a kind of an early edition of the naming ceremony that they, kind of hammered the thing out a little bit. So there were like 7 people involved. So we had to stop at a liquor store. I asked him if Fighter Pilots drink hard liquor. I was thinking maybe we have to go to, Whole Foods and get a box of, organic wine spritzers or something like that. Something a little more appropriate. But it turns out, no, they do drink actual hard liquor in the Air Force. At least the F-16 and B-52 pilots and the KC-135 pilots and the Marine helicopter pilots do. I can't swear for the rest of them. So I went out to the liquor store and I bought about $260 worth of alcohol. I bought 6 bottles of, it was a good single malt Scotch, 12-year, and then one 15-year bottle for Foghorn, who's the mayor of this goat rodeo. And I'm loaded up with my bribe ammunition because I know I'm going to need this later. So now the story starts to get interesting. We get to a little airport just south of Tampa called Peter Knight Field, and there's no reason that airport should be open. I know they tried like hell to close it. It's like Santa Monica Airport out in the middle of the bay, except smaller than that. It's uncontrolled. It is the coolest little airport I've ever seen, ever. And we pull onto the airport and we stop off. We drop some stuff off, and the next thing I know is this giant hangar, and the hangar door opens. And as the hangar door opens, there's a cutout of an F-16 on the bottom of the hangar door, and that's going up. I'm liking these guys already. And and I start meeting some of the guys, and they're great guys. They're very quiet. They're not like show business people. Hey, how are you? Oh man, no, they're very serious, very quiet guys. Nice guys, but quiet guys. And they've got great airplanes there. They had Pitts. They had a beautiful RV. I want to say an RV4. They had an RV7. Just incredible, beautiful airplanes. Now here's where it gets interesting. So I'm starting to meet the fighter pilots, and there's 1 or 2 guys from a B-52 crew who flew in an Aztec. Razorback and Kip came in an Aztec, and they're bomber pilots. But the rest of these guys are fighter pilots, and one guy named Scott, who is a civilian like me, although I didn't know it at the time because he actually was the most military kind of type of all these guys. So here's like the first lesson. I learned so much on this trip. I learned so much about psychology, learned a lot about myself. So here's the first lesson that really struck me, because we get there, it's late, it's getting dark, it's very windy, it's 15, 20 knot winds, and thunderstorm coming in directly from a side, and these guys are checking their foreflight, and they're saying, yeah, that's a bad storm. The real storm, though, is the one on the south side. I look behind the hangar, and there's this gigantic thunderstorm coming in this way, too. And I'm kind of thinking like if I was a pilot, I don't know, man, it's a little dicey, it's kind of, it's not exactly kind of whether you want to take off. And then these guys are going, want to go around the flagpole? Absolutely, I do, yes. So they start pushing the planes out. And this was my first big major revelation of the trip, was I decided right then and there that, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I decided right then and there that the one thing I was not going to do on this trip was be we'll just say wussy. I just wasn't going to be that guy, and it didn't matter. It really didn't matter what happened to me. There was a conscious moment when I looked, because this major thunderstorms, and the ceiling was probably 600-700 feet broken, and I remember thinking 2 things. First of all, if these guys are ready to fly, then I'm ready to fly. They're 2,000-hour fighter pilots and F-16s, and if they think it's good to go, it's good to go for me. So there's that whole thing. But much more importantly than this, I can't tell you how important this was to me, because it was crystal clear. It was like a diamond bullet right between the eyes. I remember pushing that airplane out, looking at these storms and this weather, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like we were taking off into a thunderstorm or anything. It was a little dicey. And I remember thinking, you know what? I would rather go into the water at 180 knots and say no to these guys. I really would. I'd rather be fished out of that bay than be the guy who had a chance to go fly and sat there and said, I don't know, it seems a little dicey. No. It was like, I don't know if, I know we got some guys watching in Tampa. I don't know if you have that kind of clarity mentally. Maybe you function like that all the time. But I had that moment of absolute clarity. And it was, I would rather go into the water than say no to this. Much rather. And as it turned out, it was the best time I ever had in my life. And if I had not made that decision, then I would have missed the best time of my life. So I get with Scott into his spectacular RV7, which is a traditional, conventional configured propeller in the front, fairly short wingspan, short wide wings, tail dragger, hard to land and fly. And Chaz got in his Lancer Legacy, and Skippy got in his Pitts Special, and we taxied out, and we went out for about a half an hour, and I have never had that much fun with my clothes on or off, ever. First of all, this airport, I can't describe this airport. I mean, as much as I'd like to, I can't describe it. There's people in the back here. It's like, the only way I can think to describe it to you is, anybody ever play like first-person shooters or any kind of like computer games? It's like a map. It's like a level map. It's got everything. It's got this incredible this little peninsula down there, and if you take off, there's a dock, and there's container ships, and it's got giant cranes and giant tanks of stuff. And then over here is the Tampa Bay, and there's a little island appropriate for strafing and bombing runs, and way off about 8 miles that way is MacDill Air Force Base with its giant runways. You make a half a right turn, there's Tampa right there. I mean, it's a 7-minute, not even that, it's probably 4 minutes to get to Tampa and all the beauty of downtown. And this little airport, they just let these guys, this is how awful California is. I keep coming back to the People's Republic of California, and I keep realizing that I live in the most miserable state in the union, because I keep saying things like, I can't believe they let you do this. But they let you do it. And these guys went out over the bay, and we were playing tag. We were Scott was going to, calling guns, and there's Chaz in a 90-degree bank at 200-300 feet off the water, and we're in a 90-degree bank coming out of a high G yo-yo. We're rolling around on this guy, and it's like guns, click, 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 got him. And then next thing you know, where's Chaz? He's behind us. He's 20 feet behind us. He's right there. And I had so much fun. We performed all kinds of maneuvers, no illegal maneuvers, certainly, because flying illegally is legal. But we did do aggressive maneuvering within the confines of safe and legal flying. But boy, oh boy, was it fun. So I've got a video of that first flying, and I'm going to play that, and then things got even better. So let's tee this baby up here. I don't want you. You can go away. So hopefully I can narrate this. I took the background noise on this down as much as I could. There's a lot of wind noise, but I wanted to get the engine roars if I could. So this is Foghorn on the ground shooting, and I'll just kind of do a quick little narration of this, hopefully, and everything will still work. Here we go. So this is the first flight of the day at Tampa. So there's that's me going off in Scott's RV-7, and here comes Chaz in his Lancer Legacy. And these are powerful and fast airplanes, and it's one of the problems with this video is you don't really get a chance to. And following along in the awesome pit special, there goes Skippy, who's having some kind of oil problem apparently, same as I did with my thing. So there we go, we're flying out of there, and you can see that clouds are pretty low. It's bumpy as hell, so you got nothing else to do in the afternoon, so you put on a little air show for people at your own airport. Now I'm in the center airplane. I'm in Scott's RV-7 there. And it may not seem like a lot of separation to you, but I'm here to tell you, when you look out the window and see an airplane that's a wingspan or two away, you could reach out and just touch and open the canopy. It's spectacular. And there's that oil leak again. Skip, you got to get that taken care of, buddy. There you go. So we made a pass there. That was kind of fun. And then, hey, look, there's a hangar. Oh, nope, there's not just a hangar. There's 3 guys at like low-level formation, high speed. This is not the stuff we did out over the bay, by the way. I mean, we went out over the bay and just played tag and did all kinds of things. Now watch this one. I'm on the plane on the right, and we come by low, and then he's gone. He's out of frame, and the reason he's out of frame is Scott pulled like a 3 or 4G turn, and we're way up there. And without the G's, it just looks kind of But when you pull the 3 or 4 G's at the bottom, you go over the top and you go a little weightless. It's just killer. Here comes Skippy showing off again with his faulty oil manifold there. He's just put a little air show on, and there's people sitting there fishing, and everybody's just looking up and applauding and cheering. It's great. So here's me on the left in the RV-7, and there's Chaz on the right in the. Oh, now he's behind us on the left in the Lancer Legacy, and. Skippy's following along. If you remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the flying saucers would fly through the air, they're flying saucer, and then that one little red dot would follow just a couple, seconds behind. That's Skippy in the little pits. Tiny little airplane there. So we're just having the time of our lives. The time of my life. And these guys just do it every day because it's fun. So this is a little weird. You can see me landing there, just barely above that little yellow thing. But if you look in the background, you can see the lights of incoming Chaz. Now, I'm on the airplane on the ground. It was a 15-20 knot crosswind and a tail dragger. Scott landed that thing perfectly, and just as we're getting stable, right over our head at 25 feet, there goes Chaz in his Lancer Legacy. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm as happy as I can be. That's probably a 40, 50, 60-degree bank as a 2G turn out of there. And watching it from the ground just doesn't tell you how exhilarating it is. It's just the greatest thing in the world. So here comes me and Scott's RV. Fantastic. And Foghorn's doing the narration there. And here comes the beautiful little pits Skippy owns. These are what we play with for fun in America, because we work our tails off and we have a little discipline and we can actually afford these things. That is a beautiful airplane. They're all beautiful airplanes, all three of them. Just about the nicest airplanes I ever saw. Let's see if I get this before we go back. It always cycles back to the top. Yeah. Okay, so that was the first flight. And hey, I'm thinking, man, this is great. I'm thinking this is as good as it's going to get. I haven't ever had that kind of fun flying. However, a little time goes by, and the guys start showing up, and I've got all their names for you coming up. But I think he was driving a brand new Corvette. It would make sense that he would be driving a brand new Corvette because he's a fighter pilot. So a guy with a call sign, an awesome call sign of T-Rex. It's not T-Rex. It's a kind of a cross, I understand, between Tourette's and T-Rex. It's T-Rex. T-Rex shows up, I think, he showed up in something. Somebody had a new Camaro there, but T-Rex shows up with these two lovely young ladies who he met the night before and invited him to this party. And now that there are these two beautiful young ladies there, well, needless to say, we all have to go flying again, because obviously there's no way we're going to just sit on the ground like a bunch of GD civilians. So just when I thought the fun flying was over, we just pulled the planes out again, because impressions have to be made. And for those of you watching at home, and those of you who may be here in the house, I'm speaking from experience, although not their kind of experience, but some experience, 1,000 hours in general aviation experience, when I say that if you want to impress a young lady, having her life in your hand is it's effective. It's effective. Going up there and be like, boy, if this guy screws up, we're both going to die. Yeah, it's the way it's supposed to be, baby. Relax. We got this covered. Nothing to it. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. I do this every day. I do this before I go to school in the morning. I do this for breakfast. T-Rex showed up in Sobe's new Corvette. I'm sorry, that's right. Sobe came with some of these ladies too. Sobe's an amazing guy, great guy, tanker pilot, KC-135 pilot, and I had a great time talking to him after it was all over at the bar. The KC-135 is based on a 707 airframe, and my first flight ever was in a 707. And it was just great talking to him. And, obviously nobody gets to fly anywhere without the tankers, because those F-16s chew up a lot of fuel. And it'd be nice to go and launch airstrikes against ISIS, but if you don't get to leave Florida, it's probably not as effective as it would be otherwise. So go tankers. So we trot the planes out again. And I'd had a cocktail by this time. The pilots hadn't, but I had. And it's like, you want to go? Oh, yeah, I surely do. This time we didn't do as much stuff out over the bay. We didn't do quite the kind of maneuvering and yanking and banging out over the bay. But this time when you see the video, it's going to be, by the way, Lord Teo says it's like having her hop on the back of the motorcycle. It's exactly what it's like, only in 3 dimensions, louder and cooler. When you see this video, the camera's compensating for the low light. It was damn near black. It wasn't fully dark. It was sunset, but it was getting dark. It's going to look a little brighter than this in the next video. So in the first time we went out, we flew, did all these air combat maneuvers and just, pulling these incredible turns and rolling in on guys and just having a blast. This time it got a little insane in a great way. This is when I realized, when I got back from the second flight, that this airport, Peter Knight Airport, is the greatest airport on the face of planet Earth. And when I got out of the plane, I made a promise, which I am going to keep, which is before the end of the year, and hopefully by the October at the latest, maybe September, October at the latest, I am flying my Long Easy down to Tampa, Florida, and I am going to take 2 days to get there, and I take 2 days to get back, and I'm going to spend 3 days at night with these guys doing what they did, because I have never, ever, ever had this much fun flying. Funny that the only time I ever had anything close to this much time flying was when I started. I got started in gliders, and I think my second flight, I had probably 8 hours of flight time. It was my second solo flight. My roommate and flight instructor was on the tow plane, and he's in a Piper Pawnee, and I'm in a Grobe 102, and we're 2,000 feet above the desert, and I just pull the release, and I turn right, he turns left just to clear the rope so I don't hit the rope. And the second that rope was clear, I just rolled into like a 90-degree left bank of this little glider and started pulling these G's getting inside this guy, because it's all I ever wanted to do. I had 8 hours of flight time, I guess. And he rolls the Pawnee in, and we're just chasing each other around like that. Man, that was fun. His first flights were, I've flown 186 miles on a 2,000-foot tow. It took me almost 8.5 hours, I guess. And Yeah, you start flying in gliders. You fly at 45, 50-degree banks, 2 knots above the stall, and it's all seat of the pants. It's great stuff. I hadn't done that in 25 years. Not this kind of fun. So here's the second flight of the day. And this is cool because you'll get a better idea of the rush that this is. But before I run it for you, I just want to tell you one thing about this. When you see this video, you're looking at airplanes that are coming towards you, and they're coming towards you at 100. In case of some of this, I'm in Chaz's Lancer now. These things are coming towards you. We were on the deck. We were probably doing 170 knots. I'd say at least that. Guys just diving out of the sky, doing low passes at this most amazing, awesome airport in the world. And so there's nothing in this video that's going to give you the sense of the ground rush. There's nothing in the video that's going to give you a sense of how low you really are and how everything's just kind of a blur. And of all the things that I regret you won't be able to experience in this video, you won't be able to experience the G load, because a couple times here, Chaz just, he's on the deck at, he's practically at V&E. He's almost going as fast as the plane will go. And on the deck, he'll just snap it into a 45-degree bank and do a climbing turn out. And it's a 3 or 4G turn. You're pretty much weightless at the top. It's so much fun. You may get a sense of it. I hope you do. Anyway, I'll narrate this one too, so here we go. So this is before the naming ceremony. I'm in the airplane that you can see coming in on the deck here. That's Chaz's and his Lancer Legacy. It's a very fast airplane. We're coming in very hot. And right on the deck, probably 20 feet. They're not even probably 10 feet there. There's a 60-degree climbing pull-out turn, probably 3.5, 4 Gs coming around the corner there. And then we'll just kind of climb up into the sky and go away. And then we turn around, we come back, do it again. And we had 3 of us flying again. I'm flying with Chaz, and the ladies were flying with Skippy and T-Rex in his Long Easy. And okay, watch this. Just watch this. We're like on the deck. We are zooming. You have no idea how fast we're going. And I could see them filming, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, why don't you just take that way? Oh man, I'm almost speechless. This is almost one of those times. Here we go again, coming down on the deck. You can hear Foghorn cheering him on. Not quite so low this time. And again, you don't get the sense of it, but this like a really aggressive high G pull up, and then just kind of a nice little wing over on the top. You're pretty much weightless right around there or so. Still pulling some centrifugal forces out, but your gravity's giving you a break there for a second.
Well, this is interesting.
And then we're coming into land. This is us landing, and all of a sudden, I could see them ahead of us because I'm looking at guys like dive bombing the field. There goes T-Rex on another runway. He's doing a high-speed pass in his awesome Long Easy. And he'll pull out real aggressively there. He's got some lovely lady who's never flown in a small airplane before, probably, I was going to say probably screaming for their lives, but actually having the time of their life because they stayed for the whole party, so I figured if they really hated it, they probably would have split. And that's me taxiing back in that amazing Lancer Legacy of Chaz's. It's a great airplane. It's one of the most beautiful airplanes I've ever seen, and Chaz is astonishing pilot, so Skippy. It's the top again. So that was that. Now we get to the heart of the evening. I have actual video of the naming ceremony, but I'm not going to show it because my version of it's much better than the video version of it. Because I'll just tell you. I don't care what it looked like. I'm going to tell you how it felt, and that's much better than telling you what it looked like. I'll just tell you how it felt. So here, in a nutshell, is how it went. This is my perspective, and I bet it's the perspective of just about every other second lieutenant who's been through this before. And I learned so much about psychology on this trip because I was just so engaged. So I got to kind of clear my head now and kind of take myself back. So here's what happened. We got back from our second flight. I've already had a cocktail or two. We're getting ready to start the goat rodeo. Foghorn says, "All right, come with me." He takes me to a lounge, and in the back of the lounge, which pretty much lit me right up, I got to tell you, sitting there on the lounge on the table is a brand new sage green flight suit and a white T-shirt. So he says, "Put these on." Yes, sir. So I put these things on. Now, I knew what was going to happen more or less. I knew I was going to get roasted. I knew I was going to get jibed. I knew I was going to get a lot of grief handed my way. And I was thinking I was ready for it. I actually thought I was ready for it. That's the part that's hilarious. And so I had said to him as a gag prior to going down, because I knew the name was going to be a really kind of a take the wind out of your name. So on the way down there, before I went, I sent Hey, Razorback's watching. Hey, Razorback, good to see you, buddy. He's a great guy too. So on the way down there, before I went, weeks before I went, I sent him an email just as a gag, just to slap him back a little bit. I said, "Hey, I know it's probably a lot of trouble picking a name, so here's just a few you might want to use if you just get a little short on time. It was like Starlance, Mockbuster, Stud Six, all these cool names. It was a joke. I thought it was pretty funny. So I come out of the lounge in my flight suit, and I'm walking down there, and I'm thinking, here's how the night's going to go. They're going to throw me some stuff. I'm going to throw some stuff back. Going to be a night of mutual repartee, this kind of thing. So I walk out there, and I've got this flight suit on, and they're putting me in this parachute harness, and I'm saying, no, the harness wasn't on yet. I'm walking out there. I'm just kind of, let them know that, I'm not going to just roll over and take this. So, hey, I think I look better in this flight suit than all of you guys combined. If they're getting ready to do an Air Force recruiting poster, they ought to take the picture now, this kind of thing. And I'm expecting, like, this laugh. And there's, like, this silence, and it's like, why is it speaking? Why is it speaking? Tell it to shut up. Tell it to sit down. Send it outside. Send it outside. Send it outside. Nothing. It's just like, what? Yeah, now get into this harness, you monkey. And they start putting me in this parachute thing, but they kept it really tight so I had to like loosen it. And I'm just in this completely embarrassed, can't get these straps to open, feeling like an absolute idiot. And they're just they're just referring to me in the third person, which is appropriate, actually. Why is it smiling? Why is it not sitting down? Why does it have its harness on? Whose idea was this? So Foghorn is the mayor of the event, or the sheriff, depending on your flavor of naming ceremony, and he's got a cowboy hat on with a little badge on it. And they're yelling at him. They're like saying, what did you bring us? What is this thing that you dragged in here, and why are you wasting our time with this low-life speck? So I finally get in this parachute harness, and I go sit in this idiot stool right next to this giant whiteboard of shame, and then Foghorn starts to read out to these guys the evidence against me. And first of the evidence against me is he's reading the email that I sent him back, and he's listing the names that I listed for myself as a joke, but ain't nobody laughing. And they're just looking like, what? What does it think it is? Why is it here? Why is it here? What is it? What is it doing? Why does it look so stupid? And at this point, and by this point, I'm probably 5 minutes into this thing, and from this point forward, I'm like, all I want is to be quiet, not say anything, not give them anything to leap on. Just keep your head bowed. Don't say anything. Yes sir, no sir. That's it. Just nothing. Because this is not a fair fight, and I'm not going to win it, and I'm not even going to tie it. Shut up and minimize the damage. So I'm looking at the floor here, and they start giving a list of names. So they got all these fighter pilots sitting around in a semicircle behind the most awesome bar in the history of the world, by the way. Absolute rescue bar. Had been laminated, a mustache. It was a great bar. It's a story in the bar all by itself. And so they're putting the names up on this whiteboard. These are my potential call sign names. Up at the top of the whiteboard are the words NTCS Whittle. That's for no tactical call sign. Could have been FNG Whittle, which stands for something new guy. But it was NTCS Whittle, no tactical call sign. And so they start listing the names that would be appropriate for me to use as my identity for the rest of time. I literally cannot repeat the first 5 or 6 because even I, who have lived in places where sailors have been embarrassed to go in terms of language, even I cannot repeat them. I can't even remember them. There's like a black scar where those words were. But they were really. I can give you the ones that I can give you the ones that I could reproduce. One of them was STFU, which for those of you who are familiar with internet short acronyms, I was nearly STFU. I was nearly Stuffer. Stuffer lasted until the final round. It's like Stuffer's an acronym too. It's Stuffer, as apparently every second lieutenant in the Air Force apparently gets started with Stuffer is on the board. It stands for Stop Talking You Blankin' Retard, which would have been a good name for me also, frankly. Gay porn was high on the list. Gay porn was a good name that survived many rounds. I almost got named gay porn. That was almost my call sign. When I sent Foghorn that list of names, as this is a joke, of these badass names that would have been great to have, I said, now I realized now that I really stuck my foot, it was probably going to be Bambi now. And he read that aloud, and everybody should go, Bambi, Bambi, yeah, Bambi's perfect. So Bambi goes up there in big letters. a bunch of names from the Stratosphere Lounge, because he'd contacted you, been in touch with some of you guys. So a bunch of names that came in from Strata Loungers got on the board, although the first entire left column of 20 names were, every single one of them were unrepeatable. They were just simply the most profane things I've ever imagined. I didn't think I could imagine pictures like that, but yeah, they were there. So Judy was up there for some reason early, and I'm thinking, oh God. And seriously, by the time we had 40 names up there, I think there was one that I was okay with, and the rest of them were ranging from suicide to just don't ever show your face to anybody again. And so they're screaming these names out, and Foghorn's writing them down. And at this point, actually, I am so humiliated in a good way. I mean, humbled is a better word, really, because humiliated is probably what it is. I really was so reduced because they're not. This is the difference between squadron mates and military comrades and friends, because friends will never put you through that. They don't have any occasion to. But I'm telling you, after 10 minutes of this, I would have done anything that these guys wanted me to do. And I can prove it. There's photographic evidence of them. And the reason I can prove it is because I get up, there's an early chance for me to get one of these names. There's 40 horrible names on the board. And I have a chance, apparently, at this point, to have one of the names removed from the board. I get to pick the name I hate the most and have it removed from the board in exchange for the presentation of one of the bribes. If I give the guy this, $30 bottle of scotch, that gets me a vote. I get to vote a name off. So I give the first bribe. I want to say I gave it to Chaz, and I think I said, Chaz, please accept this. My girlfriend screams out your name when we're having sex. And he graciously accepted it. And so I took off the most... Scatological is way too mild a term for the first name. It's certainly not producible here, but it was the most loathsome name of all. Took that off, and then I got a chance to they're throwing more on there, and then this is when I realized how the night was going to go. The second name I tried to get off of there was Bambi. So I took my second bottle of scotch to this guy, gave him the bribe, and I forget what I said, something along the lines of, I had a near-death experience, and God speaks very highly of you, And he accepted the bribe, and then I took Bambi off, and I'm thinking, well, okay, at least it's not going to be that. So it's not going to be that. And then Polar, that son of a bitch, Polar. Polar is a young guy, real friendly guy, a very funny guy, and a very deadly guy. But I've got Bambi off the board, and I just gave a nice bottle of scotch to get Bambi off the board. And Bambi's off the board, and Polar's sitting there. He's watching my eyes, and he sees how much I hate Bambi. He sees how this is the one I really got to get rid of. It really loathe Bambi. And so Polar says, Mr. Mayor, point of order. And Foghorn recognizes him because you have to have a drink on your head, apparently, to be recognized. He had a drink on his head. He said, point of order. He said, yes. And he says, I want to drink Bambi back onto the board. Son of a bitch. So I said, what? And he said, yeah. So Polar takes this gigantic swig of rocket fuel or whatever he was drinking, and Bambi goes back up on the board. And then I realized I only have 6 bottles of scotch left now, and I know for a fact that if I keep fighting Bambi, he or somebody else, I'm just going to give a bottle away, take it off, they're going to drink it back on, and that's going to be the end of that. So this is some of the things you learn as a victim of these ruthless sons of bees. I'm going to leave that camera on. One of the things I learned from these guys is once they realize what you hate, that's what you're going to get. So don't telegraph it. Keep it, okay, yeah, Bambi's fine, whatever. Yeah, Bambi be all right. I can live with Bambi. No, but I'm starting to learn the rules of this thing. So we're putting more names up, we're taking more names off, and we're doing all this other stuff. Now, just so you know, by this point, anything I say, anything I do is immediately demolished. Immediately demolished. And what I'm going to have a whole thing to say about peer pressure when I'm done telling this story. But give you an example. At this point, everything I say and do is utterly trashed by people who I admire very much. And so you just keep your head down, and you basically get to a place where you just do whatever they tell you. I mean, whatever you tell me, yes sir, no sir, whatever. So somebody says, well, get the bribe. So I'm got this bottle. I mean, this big box full of nice scotch, and I'm carrying it around, and they're saying things like, why are you holding that? Put it down, for God's sake. So I put it down with the bird. Not there, you idiot! What is the matter with you? So I pick it up. It's like, didn't we just tell you to put this in? Yes, sir. Well, put it down then. Where would you like? Just, for God's sake, throw him outside. Get him outside. Get him outside. Tell it to leave. It's just, and after enough of this goes on, I'm not joking about this. I'm not proud of it. I'm gonna tell you the honest truth. This is an actual factual thing. At this point, I am so compliant that they're saying, all right, why does it? By the way, why doesn't it have a beverage? Well, I had a Maker's Mark and Coke, so I went to get my Maker's Mark and Coke, and that's not a beverage, you idiot! And shoved this bottle of Maker's Mark in my hand. It was about a quarter full when I got it, and from this point on, every time they tell me to tell a drink or wherever, whatever I have to do anything, it's like I have to have a drink of a beverage, because I'm just swigging straight scotch now. And so by this point they say, all right, come up with a toast, you idiot. And so I'm trying to think, well, I don't, I'm completely lost here. It's like, whatever, anything I say is going to be bad, so I don't want to say anything. What should I drink a toast to? And I think it was Chaz, I'm pretty sure it was Chaz, screams out at the top of his lungs, he says, well, drink a toast to Hillary Clinton then, for God's sakes. Now, at this point, I'm not exaggerating, at this point, I am so far beaten up by these dudes that I take this bottle of Maker's Mark and I go to Hillary Clinton, and before I drink it, they go, to Hillary Clinton, what's the matter with you? Jesus, we thought you were one of us. We thought you had a chance to become part of this. To Hillary Clinton? Really? Really? Sit down. So I did. I drank a toast to Hillary Clinton, and I would have drank 50 of them. I would have drank 50 toasts to Hillary Clinton. Fortunately, they had more class than I did, and they wouldn't let me finish the toast. So things are proceeding at pace, and we're starting to get to the meat of the matter now. So now we got about 40 names on the board. And I'll just give you a couple of the other names, because some of these were submitted by Stratosphere Lounge people. So Judy Bambi, Stick was on there. Stick like Whittle, get it? Yeah, Whittle, Stick, yeah. Okay. Blade was on there. I remember looking at Blade and saying, Blade's not bad. Blade's not bad. Blade's actually pretty cool. So they're calling them off one by one, and so they said Blade, and I could hear, I think it was probably Polar again, that syphilis-infested malcontent. He said, no, Blade's too cool, man. Blade's too cool. I was like, God damn it, it is too cool. So Blade didn't make it. A couple of these are really interesting. This is gonna sound very odd. I think this was a submit from the Stratosphere Lounge. But one of the names on the board that was submitted from Strata Loungers was Tomorrowland. And they put it up there because they knew, it was Eyes on Fire. They put it up there because they knew how much I hate the movie. But I loved the name. I loved it. I thought Tomorrowland would have been the coolest call sign ever. It was the only one on the board. I went, oh man, that'd be awesome. Tomorrowland would be great. So I don't say anything about Tomorrowland. What do you think about Tomorrowland? Oh no, not Tomorrowland. Please, not Tomorrowland. That'll be unbearable. And don't throw me in that briar patch either there. So this is weird. I don't know if Phil's watching live or watching taped. And Fritz there's another thing from Fritz back in the days of the planetarium. A name that got on the board by sheer coincidence, was the only nickname I've ever had in my life, and I had it when I was a kid at the planetarium when I was 13. I had these big buck teeth at the time, and they called me Termite, and I hated it. And I was Termite for about 6-7 years with these guys, and Termite's on there, and I thought, I could probably no, I couldn't live with Termite. I'd jump off a bridge if it was Termite. So Termite's on the board. That's got to go. Game Show was one because of the Game Show got up there. Jazz Hands, I don't know where Jazz Hands came from. Most of these guys are such actual men, they didn't know what Jazz Hands was. I had to go back to my kind of douchey, Santa Monica graphic designer kind of world to show them what Jazz Hands actually were. And I did such a good job of showing Jazz Hands that everybody just said, this guy is not for us. He's not Air Force material. Anybody can do kind of Jazz Hands. It's like, no, we don't want to. Get it out of here. Tell it to go outside. Send it outside. Big chant. Cassie was up there for Cassandra, and Razorback, who's apparently watching. Razorback's a great guy. B-52 pilot, sweetest, nicest man in the world. And if you start messing with his country, he's going to drop 60 megatons of the bright white light of freedom right over your head. So don't dick around with Razorback, me, or the rest of the country. Razorback gets up and makes a somewhat alcohol-fueled, impassioned defense of Cassandra, how, you're a prophet and you're mocked and despised, and Cassie, beautiful, 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 incredible, solid pitch, the only real genuine defense of any one of these names. And it was like a 3.5-minute oration. It was fantastic. It was really brilliant. I had tears in my eyes. And the second he was done, everybody went, nah, boo, boo. Nerf was a name that got up there, and the reason they like Nerf, I found later, thank you so much, because Nerf is like, oh, kind of cute. Now, the reason they were thinking about naming me Nerf, according to the guys who sent me the email afterwards, was they were going to call me Nerf because I look like the real thing, but I can't actually hurt you. Yeah, it's really funny. It's hilarious. After all I do for this country and the sacrifice I make, not of my life for safety or anything, but I've taken a pay cut occasionally. No, it's so Nerf was on the board. This one you guys will get a real kick out of. It was spelled out. It took me a second to see it. It was up on the board. It was ARKAY. RK. And it's like, RK? Oh, RK. Got it. Yes. Great. It's Patricia's birthday today. Happy birthday, Patrice. So RK was on the board. Now, I don't know. I know this must have come from some of the fans, maybe somebody in the room or somebody who's a Stratosphere Lounge fan, but Starman was on the board. And I'm going to tell you the honest truth now. I would rather have been named Bambi. I would rather have named Stuffer. I would have rather been called Gay Porn than Starman. Starman was the kind of name that was just, I would have died if it had been Starman. Because that's the ultimate embarrassment, right? The ultimate embarrassment in a call sign is a call sign that looks like you picked for yourself. That's the worst. If it had been Maverick, it would have been worse than Starman, but only incrementally worse than Starman. Starman was like, please, please, but fortunately went over like a wet balloon. Now we get down to the point of the evening. I'll tell you what I did like, I thought was clever, was Cortisol. Cortisol was on the board. That would have been a cool call sign, but it just went right over everybody's head, and I didn't want to tell them why. So we got down to like one or two or three names, and I'm going to show you a video of the final round of the naming. And of the names that survived to the very end, one of them was Urban. And Urban, and it turns out Urban stands for Unknown Writer Buys a Name. Okay. So, as a matter of fact, that had been kind of the pre-show favorite. And it was looking like it was going to kind of end up that way. And by the way, the two lovely young ladies who were there were the applause meters. They were moving their hands, like they were giant applause meters, and they were kind of measuring the applause. So we went through this whole thing. We had 40 names on the board, and then the magic happens. We had 40 names on the board, and they start screaming. They start chanting, "Feet of strength, feet of strength, feet of strength." They want to see a feat of strength, and I'm thinking push-ups. I can do a few push-ups. I don't know. Maybe they want me to pull an airplane out with my teeth or something. I don't care. I'll do anything, whatever they say. So we're figuring out the feat of strengths. Now, as it turns out, Chaz's hangar has got, you know what a mini bike is. That's something an actual human can ride. But the micro bikes, the little scale motorcycles, they're about this big. And I'm not a terribly flexible guy, and I'm 6'1". So his son's got, Chaz's son's got a little micro scale motorcycle there. And they trot this out, and they say, ride the motorcycle, ride the motorcycle. Now, at this point, I'm probably I've had at least a quarter bottle straight Maker's Mark, and I would have fallen off the floor by sitting on the floor. I couldn't sit in the stool. I couldn't sit on the floor. I couldn't sit on a box. And they wanted me to get on this tiny, tiny, tiny little motorcycle with my hands between my knees, which are up by my ears, and ride this thing around like a trained monkey, which is what I was, except not so well trained. So they put me on this motorcycle, and I got two people stabilizing me because I'm like this, and they I'm gonna have to open up the shot a little bit so we can see the full effect here. So this thing's, I think, is electric, and so it's sitting there, and I'm like this, and they give me a little push, and I give this thing the gas, and I'm like oh, and I'm zooming off between. There's a row of hangars over here, and then the row of hangars that we're on. It's a pretty wide space, wide enough to get an airplane through there. And I start zooming off into the night, and I realize the faster I go, the more stable I get, the better chance I got to stay on this thing. So I'm zooming off into the darkness here, and I'm thinking to myself, just keep going. Just keep going. They don't like you. They don't want you. Don't go back and face the humiliation of them saying, we couldn't even come up with a name. You're just not, just forget it. No, so I just thought seriously about just keep on going out into the darkness. But then they'll come after me, and that'll be humiliating. So I'll turn around and go back. So I start to make a turn, and any kind of a turn at all, and I can just feel myself going over on account of the maker's mark. And I thought, all right, it's going to have to be a real shallow turn. So I steer for the far wall of these two hangars, and I start this real shallow baby turn. I'm going a pretty decent clip, mind you. And I hear them screaming and yelling in the background. And I'm coming about a third of the way through the turn, and I'm looking at this other hangar wall. I gave myself as much room as I could. And I'm looking at the other hangar wall, and I'm coming through this turn. I said, no, there's no way I'm going to make this turn. Not a chance. I'm not going to make this turn under any circumstances. I'm going to go right into that hangar, and hopefully it'll be fatal. But I kept creasing the turn, and I just kind of came around it and just barely cleared that. So now I'm, a couple hundred yards out, and I'm looking at the hangar, and I'm so smashed that all I remember seeing is this kind of rectangle of light with these shapes in there. And I honestly, this is the psychology part that I'm so serious about. It's like the only thing that mattered to me in the world. I would have sold the country, my life, everything. I would have, anybody would have taken them out and shot, I don't care, as long as I didn't fall off the bike. That was the only thing that mattered to me in the world, was not fall off the bike in front of these guys. So I gun it. Roaring in there. And I'm thinking, I think this is a break. It better be a break, because if it's not, I'm going to go right through the propeller on that Cessna in that hangar. And I'm just watching this thing, and I go screaming in there, and the hangar part of the hangar had a nice kind of a slick plastic floor, and I get right where the chair was at full speed, and at the last minute I grab that handlebar, and this little mini bike goes like this and leaves a little skid about that long, not terribly black, just kind of a gray skid on the ground there. And everybody starts screaming, streak, 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 streak. And I'm thinking, yes, streak is an awesome call sign. Awesome, it's great. Streak is great. Streak's going to be great. And I'm smart enough, even through the alcohol haze, to realize, don't put on the streak's a great face. Put on your, no, streak is the worst call sign in the world. Oh, no, not streak. No, not streak. No, I couldn't bear it if it was streak. And I'm just sitting there and they're going, streak, streak, streak. And somebody in the background, I bet it was Polar again. I'm telling you, that guy. I heard a voice like a bell go, nah, that's too cool. No, it's not. It's not too cool. It's a horrible name. Go with Streak. So they didn't like Streak, but they did like Skid. Which immediately became Skidmark, which has a meaning all of its own for those of you who have younger brothers or children or things of that nature. So I'm thinking, okay, great. I want all this trouble and all this effort, and it's going to be Skidmark for sure. This is what it's going to be. But due to some, I don't know, maybe it was the sheer amount of dollars of alcohol that I bribed out, it got to be Skid. So we were down to Urban, Skid, and one or two other things. And at this point, I'm going to show you the video, because this is the final round of voting. And it give you a pretty good idea of what it looked like. And by the way, be sure to check out the absolutely awesome F-16 that's hanging on the bottom of Chaz's door there in front of the amazing bar. And I think that's Polar's bike you're about to see with the awesome lights and stuff. It's like Pee Wee Herman's bike, only cooler. I'm gonna play this video. I'm gonna mute the mic so we can hear it. And this is the final round of the voting. This is how it turned out. One thing at a time here. Sorry, we're not that smooth here.
For the vote, unknown writer buys a name, Urban. Yay! Wait, what happened to Hell Anus? This man won't get that one. Hell in us! Hell Anus! Where's Hell Anus? Hell in us! Jazz hands! Too true. All right, for the vote, Skid. Yeah!
Okay, so here I am talking to Foghorn, who has a very, very distinct resemblance to Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now. There, Foghorn, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. It's just the best time I ever had in my entire life, and I learned so much from it. I had so much fun. To have these guys go from instantly just calling you it and asking you, what is it doing here, and would you please send it outside, and all of that stuff, to go from that to being, accepted by guys like you. So when they were saying mark them up, I didn't show it because I wanted to keep this for a big final, like the final close. So when they say mark them up, what you got is you're wearing a sage green jumpsuit, but you've got a white T-shirt on underneath, and just zipped this thing down and ripped it open, and Foghorn got in there with his magic marker, and here it is, man. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you very much. So a lot I want to say about this, that the festivities are over. There's a lot I learned about this, and I learned a lot about it the next morning when I woke up. Still got a little feedback there because that night I wasn't thinking about anything. We hung out afterwards that night. We went to a bar and had a great time, and I got some more pictures to show you. But here's the thing. I woke up the next morning and I remember thinking, man, Streak would have been really cool. It was like my first thought was Streak would have been really, really cool. And I thought, Skid is like so unglamorous. And I'm like, me, I'm Mr. Glamour Pod. And I realized, no, that's exactly why you get the names you get. You're supposed to get the names that keep you thinking about things. It's supposed to be something simple, something, it's something that's not this whole show business guy. It's not the internet guy. It's just another guy. It's probably the worst pilot in the batch of great pilots out there. But I mean to get better, and I mean to come down there and show those guys how to actually fly an airplane. Because frankly, if I had made it to the Air Force Academy, every single one of them be a grade lower. You get what you get for a reason, and the thing that I most liked about it wasn't a pre-submitted name. It was something that happened right on the spur of the moment. It was something that came as a result of me showing off, which is appropriate for me. There's a lot you can learn from Skid. Skid is what happens when you go from a very high speed to a very slow speed out of control. That might be something you want to think about when you're driving next time, Bill. And also, skid is when you make a turn in an airplane. We have to go to the wide shot so I can use the airplane hands, which got a lot of use when I was down there. When an airplane's in a coordinated turn, its tail is kind of following it around the turn. It's in a state of sort of equilibrium. When an airplane's in a slip, it's sliding as it turns. It's going around the corner, but it's sliding into the turn. And if a plane's got too much energy, it skids. It skids around the outside. And one of the problems is a lot of guys get killed because when they make that final turn base to final, they're 200 feet above the ground, and they're in a left turn, let's say for the runway, and they're in a skidding turn. They're sliding to the outside of the turn, so they put in, I guess that'd be left rudder, but their ailerons become cross-controlled, and they go right into a spin, and down they go. A lot of guys have skidded into the ground on base to final, and so that's not something I'm ever going to do, because now it's going to be there right in front of me the whole time. But the thing that is really just impossible to describe is the sensation of coming through that. And that's like the deep thought. If I'm going to earn my pay here, that's the deep thought that came out of this thing. First of all, the thought that we don't have rites of passage anymore. Most young men, anyway, throughout every culture in history have had a chance to do something to graduate. I don't know if anybody here is Jewish, but when you get a bar mitzvah, you become part of the group. You're grown up. You're a man. I never had that happen to me. I never ever had that experience ever. And I'll tell you something. When it was over, this actually did get right through the alcoholic haze. It really surprised me. When it was over, and everybody came up and started drinking toast and congratulating me and telling me I didn't embarrass myself too badly and it could have been a lot worse and all that other stuff. These guys were coming up and shaking my hand, and I used a word I'd never used before, ever. I never used this word in common language. I've never used it. I always thought it sounded phony to me. But I'd say, hey, thanks, brother. I kept calling everybody brother. Hey, thanks, brother. It was great, brother. Thanks, brother. Thanks for coming out. And it was completely unintentional. It was not thought about at the time. I was just using the word for people I'd met an hour and a half earlier, 2-3 hours earlier at the top end. But they went to a lot of trouble for me, and that's how it felt. And I've heard guys who are in, Hell's Angels use that term, and it's a real term. It really means something. And I had such a spectacular time that it's given me a lot of thoughts about, a lot of important things, and some of these will probably bear fruit somewhere down there. But let me just say this about peer pressure and psychology. I had always considered myself to be extremely resistant to peer pressure. For example, when I was in high school, I got invited to parties never when I was getting ready for the Air Force, because Air Force dweebs are undateable. I think it's pretty clear by the quality of the people I met. They're undateable. Their favorite joke in the world is, what do fighter pilots use for birth control? Their personalities. But when I started making movies and I started getting invited to parties in my senior year in high school, everybody was smoking, pot, and it was like the big thing is 1977, and they were, really. I didn't have anything particularly against pot. It wasn't like I had a problem with it, but everybody kept saying, "Oh no, you gotta take a hit." And it's like it was the fact that everybody wanted me to do it that made me dig my heels in, and I've always been that way. When somebody wants me to do something, I just dig my heels in. I have a strong kind of ego boundary in terms of that, and I always kept thinking, I'm not going to be one of these guys who's going to just say what other people want me to say because of peer pressure. I've never been that guy. I make a living not being that guy. I'm immune to it. I'm not immune to it at all. What I came to realize was I can resist peer pressure from people I don't care about, but when it's somebody I do care about or somebody I admire, I'll do anything for these guys. I'd drink a toast to Hillary Clinton, and I would do it again. And it made me realize, that old line that your mom has, well, if these guys all jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? Now I can say with complete confidence, yes, I absolutely would. Absolutely. If every one of those guys in that hangar that night, and I'll show you a picture in a second. You know what? I'll show you a picture right now. Here we go. That's the crowd. And I'll just name them from left to right. Kip is navigator, bombardier, I guess, on B-52s. You know what? I'm going to skip that. I'm not going to say that anymore. I don't want to. There's just the slightest chance that could be somewhat compromising. I apologize, Kip, if I did. But there's Skippy, who has the pits. Sobe is back there, a great guy. Patty is married to Chaz. Other than that, she sounds like a perfectly normal, fine person. She drove me home back to the hotel at the end of the night, and I got there in one piece, so thank you so much for that, Patty. You can see the lovely Stephanie there, who is new to the scene, never knew any of these guys, never been in airline before. She's kind of buried in the middle there. In the background with his arms up is T-Retz, who owns a Long Easy, and I'm going down there, and T-Retz and I are going to spend a day, just the two of us. We're going to do a Long Easy show that's going to get some attention, and then we're going to crack it out to these other people flying these conventionally configured airplanes. Scott in the foreground making the fist is the guy I flew with in his incredible RV-7, and Scott is an incredible pilot. Just quiet, incredible pilot. He says he does it 2-3 times a day if he can. He just comes out for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm going down there to spend a week with these guys. Razorback is a terrific guy. I think he's watching now, and he's a great guy, made a real passionate defense about things, and had great things to say. Chronic in the background, you can just barely see. I think actually the greatest single honor ever was I went to CENTCOM the next day, where so many of these guys work, and Foghorn sent me a picture. Chronic had put Skid on the board for CENTCOM, and there was some talk about where this guy is and why he's AWOL, because I was listed for a duty some kind of a duty assignment there, and said Skid on the board, and that meant the world to me. There I am holding the motorcycle of doom, by the way. The giant thing was actually pretty heavy the whole time. Razorback had a few, and I'd had a few. Razorback was saying, "No, not over your head. No, you don't want to hurt your brain." It's like, my brain, come on, guys. It's the least of my problems now. There's a happy guy. The only guy wearing a flight suit's the only guy who's not in the Air Force, actually, with the exception of Scott. Chaz is rock solid, incredibly gifted pilot, and a great leader, just a great leader. When I was flying with him, he's telling me I would do this with the Vipers. He did the briefings on both the flights. Just a natural leader. Foghorn, you have no idea what you've done for me there, buddy. He's known as Viper 6 here in the Strato Lounge, but you just gave me the best day of my life, honestly. Sweet, good man, great kids, terrific kids, great wife I didn't get a chance to meet, but I'll meet him when I fly down there in a couple months. Titus was terrific. Mojo, great call sign, which apparently stands for mouth open, jammer on. So it's never as cool as you think it is. And there's that look at, you just look at Polar. You can see you can just see the lights going out in the eyes. You know, that syphilis is just taking its toll. And honestly, I don't think he's got long to be with us. And there's Leslie up on top there. And also not there were Eric, Cougar, and Knuckles. Eric was taking the picture. Knuckles left just a little bit earlier. And Cougar was big part of the naming committee, so that's that. But you guys, this is me in the restroom there, getting changed in my real clothes. That's as real a smile as I get. I'm as proud of that as I am of everything. I'm not terribly proud of the Florida hair. I had to crop that out, obviously, because the humidity was very hot. And that's the difference between me and the actual fighter pilots, is I worry about things like that, and they just go out and kill bad guys. And that's why it's such an honor to be associated with actual real men, real actual aviators and pilots who do this for a living. I don't know. It's the best day of my life. Story's going to get better every time I tell it, that's for sure. And it's a good story to start with. So anyway, that was just the best thing. And back to just to close with the peer pressure thing. I honestly, when they started with this, the thing about this, the thing it has so much power is that even for an hour and a half, I mean, obviously, some people have said boot camp is 12 weeks of this, but even for an hour and a half, when you don't want to be in that group, you're not going to sit in the chair in the first place. You're not going to sit there and buy the bribes and put up with all this stuff if you don't really, really admire these people, both as individuals and for what they do. So it's a club you want to join really, really, really badly, and I've wanted to join that club for 51 years now. But to go through that, because I did come in there thinking, it'll be a mutual thing. They'll make fun of me, I'll make fun of them. They'll shoot a couple of things my way, I'll bandy a couple of things back. No, that's not how it's going to work. Your legs are going to be cut off from underneath you instantly, and you're going to sit there like a wet dog and hope that they don't ask you to walk through a propeller blade for your feats of strength, because you'll do that too. But I mean it, and this is kind of the breakthrough for me about the peer pressure thing. If I wasn't joking, when I said if Mom said, if Foghorn and Polar and Skippy and Chaz jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? I would. Absolutely, I would jump off a bridge. And this is what I learned about peer pressure, and this kind of peer pressure. I'd jump off a bridge if they were jumping off a bridge without looking down, because my feeling is these guys are so capable, they're so confident, they're so fun, they're so skilled, that if they think it's worthwhile to jump off a bridge, and there's something down there at the bottom that's worth jumping off the bridge for, and if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, because I trust them. I trust them with my life. And a lot of people use that expression, I trust him with my life, that you don't, I mean, I trust him with my life. I trust her with my life. You don't. I do trust these guys with my lives. I certainly trusted my life with Scott and with Chaz, because Scott and Chaz, just among the other guys, and they all would have done exactly the same thing, were taking me into a flight envelope where the slightest miscalculation is going to be fatal. Any questions about that? I didn't have any questions about it whatsoever. At that kind of speed, at that kind of altitude, and given some of those maneuvers out over the bay, a serious error in judgment is going to be fatal to them, and it's going to be fatal to me. And I knew it when I got in there, and I was completely trusting of them. And as I said at the beginning of this 2-hour-long tale, if that's how you're going to go, that's how I want to go. That's how I want to go. But they didn't make any fatal errors, because they're competent, and they're skilled, and they're good at what they do, and they do it all the time. And I wish I did it all the time. And that I keep coming. The last thing I'll say, I keep saying the last thing I'll say. That's a good sign that I'm on a really great story, because I'll say it's the last thing I'll say about 50 times when it's something I really care about. But I want to say one last thing about that airport. I don't know how they pulled it off. I don't know what the unusual conditions about that airport are. But a guy who's flown out of Santa Monica for so many years, where they're just constantly making every effort to close that airport, to do those low passes, those 3-person ships, the policemen there was the nicest man in the world, and he would sit in his squad car. We're taxiing back, or in the golf cart going back to the hangar, and he'd said, "You guys have fun up there?" And I thought, that sounds a bit like America to me. Actually sounds a little bit like America. I remember that. Did you guys have fun up there? As a matter of fact, sir, we did. Would you like to come over for a drink, or water, anything you need? You hungry? No, I'm fine. Thanks. Just doing a little paperwork. That's where I want to live. I want to live in a country like that. I want to live in a country that's like that again. We didn't hurt anybody. If you don't like airport noise, you probably shouldn't buy a house under the airport. We had the time of our lives. I did. It's probably not the time of their lives. They do it every day. It was the time of my life, and nobody got hurt. And if somebody had gotten hurt, by the way, this is an important point. It may sound like a minor distinction, but it's not. It's incredibly important. If somebody made a mistake that had proven fatal to me and the pilot of the airplane I was in, that would have been the two fatalities. There wouldn't have been anybody else. We didn't buzz people. We didn't buzz houses. Every turn that was made out over the water. Every low pass was over the runway. Everything that was done risking the people who were taking the risk and not bringing any risk to people who hadn't signed on for the risk. And that's part of it too. You don't have a right to go out there and endanger somebody else's life just because you feel like it's a fun thing to do. But like I said at the beginning of the story, when I saw those thunderclouds and the low deck and it was bumpy and windy and these are light little airplanes, I just said two things to myself. First of all, these guys are 1,000-hour pilots who do this every day, and that's good enough for me. I trust them. And secondly, if it turns out that my trust is misguided, then I would rather be that guy than the guy who sat there and said, "I don't think so." Big deal. A big deal to me anyway. So, so that's the story of the best day of my life. And we've still got a little time here. We're about 2 hours into this, maybe an hour 38. On one story, that's not bad. Foghorn, I'll just tell you one more time. I think you might be watching Razorback. I don't know if any of you other guys are going to watch later, but you have no idea, really. And I feel like these are really good friends of mine, and certainly a lot better than the lowlifes I've been associating with for the last 50 years or so. Incompetent, no good for nothing swine. It's about time I moved up in the world. That's all I have to say. And I'll bring some penicillin for Polar. That's the least I could do, I think. So we're not alone here. As I said, it's the 100th episode, which in itself is absolutely incredible and utterly amazing to me, that anybody would sit and listen to this. I mean, I could see an appeal for the Stratosphere Lounge if maybe you're in a medically induced coma, or perhaps you've got trouble sleeping or something like that. It might be useful therapeutically. But the idea that anybody would sit and listen to one of these things for 3 hours is incredible to me, and the fact that people would do it 100 times is even more incredible. So we have a bunch of people here, and you know what? I thought I brought it in here. I got to find this thing. Hang on a second. There's something I don't want to forget, and I will forget it, and I don't want to forget it. Where did it go? I hate it when I have to do this, but this is important. I thought I copied. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Is that right? No, that can't be right. Hang on a second, guys. Yeah, let me play this. I don't know what the preview is. It may just be a bad preview. But this came to us from, and it was appropriate to do this on the 100th episode, and I've got some people here I want to talk about. So assuming I got this right, and if I didn't, I'll reload it. Let me just show you something that was done. It's the first that I'm aware of, the first kind of user-created content for the Common Sense Resistance, and let's see if this thing plays.
Always knew our climb would be steep, but in record numbers you came out and you spoke up for change. And with your voices and your votes, you made it clear that at this moment, in this election, there is something happening in America. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance. You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
rewind a little, and this is the firewall.
We always knew our climb.
Yay! As it turns out, they're actually here. They're actually here. The Belichicks. Look at those two fine, upstanding young men there in the background. Now you got to look at these two lads. There they are. Well done, lads. Absolutely spectacular. It's an honor. It's a great honor to be included in that thing. And this is the whole. Idea of the whole thing. You know, I can't get enough. Hard enough for me just to get the afterburners and firewalls and trifectas done. But these guys put it together, and I think it's the first of hopefully many. We're not quite in the year of the Common Sense Resistance yet. I'm still trying to get this first movie done, but it's going to be the second year movie, and I got a feeling that it's going to generate all kinds of things. It was a real surprise seeing my picture there, to be perfectly honest with you, no joke. But that's exactly it, right? I mean, it's like, here's the guy talking. We're not making this up. He's using his own language. Here comes the wrench. Here comes the fist, and it was fantastic. It was just great, and I'm really proud of you guys, and I'm really glad you got the chance to show up. So we've got a studio audience here for the 100th episode, and we may do this kind of thing, you know, at least once a quarter, you know, maybe once every couple months, just do an episode and bring people down, because it sure is a lot of fun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some no, wait a minute, hold on a minute. There's some people all right, don't let me forget this. We'll do some questions, but you throw something at me if I start closing the show and I haven't read these names off. We'll do that. That's a good ending. Okay, let's do this. We got a microphone over there, and we got a live group, and we picked people who had done a lot behind the scenes and given a lot of time and effort to this whole thing, really unheralded, and certainly wanted those people here for the 100th episode. So we got a bunch of them back there, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but we got a microphone hooked up. Right there, it's among it's back of it's by the carrots. Now, I think if I did this right, it should be set up. Now, there's a mute on that mic, so if you push the button that's yellow, you're going to have to hold it up. Anybody who wants to ask a question, we'll just take our turns there, and actually you can just pick it up and...
Now it's off.
Is it on or off?
Hit it again. There you go. Now you're live.
I think I have to actually take these monitors off. I think in order to hear your microphone, I have to do this a little bit. Okay. Anybody got a question? Well, apparently not. It's a fun show. Come on, somebody must have something to say.
Yeah, I have one.
Can you speak into the mic?
Sure, can you hear me?
Not
Hold it up. Hold it up.
really. Got to get it right up there.
Pick it up. How about that?
Not quite. Is it not muted?
It must not be. It must not be unmuted. It's blue.
Oh, well, we're not getting it.
Blue is the color.
Let me try one thing here, because this is the worst produced show on the internet. Make sure it's supposed to be showing. One more time.
3, 1, 2, 3.
Nope. We'll just hear you on this mic. We'll just do it that way.
Okay. Do you have any prospects for doing any presidential speech writing during this campaign season?
The question is, do I have any prospects for doing any presidential speech writing? And the answer is, as it turns out, I might have some prospects for working with campaigns. Whether that leads to speech writing, I'm not sure. I do have a chance, I think. I don't want to jinx it necessarily. I don't want to say it's a done deal. But there are some people involved with the Cruz Super PAC. And I want to do a series of videos with Ted Cruz. I want to do, if it works out, what I want to do with Ted is, look. I think Ted Cruz is the real deal. I think he's a real deal. There's a few people in the race who I think are. There are a number of people who I would vote for, certainly considering the alternative. But Ted is top of my list. I like Scott Walker very much. I like Carly Fiorina very much. But I think if I could do one thing for the Cruz campaign, it would be this. I've had a chance to speak to Ted at several events. We just happened to be in the same places at the same time. I introduced him once in Texas when I obviously called for the mass murder of millions of people, and everybody took that seriously. If you have a learning disorder, if you're missing a hemisphere, you take that kind of rhetoric seriously, I guess. But here's the thing about that I'd like to do with Ted. I would like to get out there in Texas with Ted Cruz in a place where he's comfortable with a camera crew and just turn the cameras on and start talking and spend about 20-25 minutes just getting him liquored up, so to speak. I don't mean actually liquored up. I mean comfortable. Because of all the candidates, Ted understands the story best. He understands the philosophy. He's been a student of the Constitution. He was reciting the Constitution when he was a young boy. His father escaped from Cuba. He understands the freedom thing. He understands guns. He is, by the account of both Alan Dershowitz and also Antonin Scalia, I think were the two people, said he was without question the smartest law clerk they ever saw at the Supreme Court. Ted Cruz is a patriot, and he's a brilliant guy. And I've seen him speak, and I think he's terrific. But I think when he speaks, as many people who don't speak publicly for a living, I think he can be a little guarded. And the reason I'd like to do these videos is because Ted knows enough about the work I do to know that I'm not an imposter, and I'm not just some blonde, from Fox News in San Antonio interviewing him for a piece. I want to get out there and start talking with Ted about foundational conservative issues. I want to do a guns segment. I want to do a Constitution segment. I want to do a lawfulness segment. Because what I'd like to see from Ted, and I haven't seen a lot of it yet, is I'd like to see him passionate. I'd like to see him on fire. Not hair on fire, because Ted doesn't get hair on fire. Ted has got the kind of personality that's electable, and I don't. He's the kind of guy who's very level-headed. He's a very balanced, calm individual. But I know he does care passionately about these things, and especially about the lawlessness. That's where I'd go with him. And so I would like to get him comfortable, do an interview with him, framed in such a way that I'm off camera, and then just basically have a conversation and just get him a little bit wound up and then let him go and then cut me out of it. Basically just edit it so that it's just his bites, because nobody cares about what I have to say. But he's an actual contender for the presidency. Carly Fiorina stopped me in the same room. It was an event in Dallas at AFP, I want to say. And I was sitting there talking with Ted Cruz, and Ted came in and left, and Carly Fiorina came over and said hi and said, I'm a big fan, and it's really great to see you. And, I think Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina would be a heck of a combination. You have Ted Cruz to recover the law of the country and get the politics in shape. You give Carly kind of the mandate to get all this kudzu out of the way of the economy, get the economy jump-started. We'd have a free country again in 6 months if these two people got elected. So that's the only actual overtures that I've got going. But needless to say, my whatever limited abilities I have can be put to whatever use necessary. Be my pleasure. It's not even so much the speech writing. Honestly, it's the messaging, which is different. And it's the ability to fight. If it were me and I was coaching Ted Cruz for the debates against Hillary, assuming it's going to be Hillary, I don't think she's going to make it, frankly. But if it were me, and somebody said, "Well, Mr. Cruz, your first question is about global climate change. Here's the question, blah blah blah." My advice would be, Candy, I'm going to take a loss on that question. We'll just give that one to Hillary. Because my question, actually, and what I like to do with my time is, and then I just read the statute. I just read it as an attorney. I'd read the statute. It's federal law, I forget what the statute is, says that anyone who does not submit all records at the end of their term is guilty of a felony punishable by 2 to 4 years in prison. And then the second statute says if you actively try to destroy it, if you try to destroy evidence or you're willful of withholding, destroying, I've read the statutes, then that is a different felony, also punishable by up to 3 years in prison, plus forfeiture from ever holding elected office in the government of the United States. And I would say we're not discussing whether or not these emails were classified or not classified. That's not what the statute says. The statute says you either turn them in when you leave or else it's a felony. And if you try to destroy them, then it's a felony that disqualifies you from further holding office. There's no debate that you did this. There's no question that you did this. You don't deny that you did this. So my question to you, Mrs. Clinton, about global climate change is, if you are above this law, what other laws are you above? Please tell the American people now which other laws you are above as presidential candidate and then as president of the United States. And then I just shut up. And she would wither, because she's a horrible person. No, she is a horrible person. She's a horrible person. She's a horrible candidate. You know, people say, I actually heard a defense of Hillary, and the defense was she couldn't have known that she was doing it because obviously she would have been caught. But that's ridiculous. Obama never got caught. Eric Holder never got caught. The reason she did it, the reason she violated that law so flagrantly, was because she knew that as a Democrat, she had the cloak of invisibility thrown over her by the media. And she's got to be astonished. She's really just got to be just amazed that people are continuing to ask these questions in the media. She just can't believe that it hasn't blown over like it always had in the past. It's not her first scandal, you know. I mean, the Benghazi part of it blew over, right? Her involvement in pulling away the security forces on Benghazi blew over, and her blaming this whole thing on a guy who went to prison for making a movie that had nothing to do with it. That she got away with that, but this one is a statute attached. And somebody asked me about this. Well, how come she's getting away with Benghazi and her actions in Benghazi, but not getting away with this? And my response is, well, there's no statute that prohibits bad judgment, but there is a statute that says you can't take these emails with you. It's a statute. It's there. She broke the law. I think she deserves to go to jail, and I think she might. I don't think she's going to make it. I really don't. This thing gets bigger every day, not smaller every day. And of all the reasons that this woman is unfit to be president, the main reason she's unfit to be president is she's such a horrible liar. I mean, it comes time if you're going to be president of the United States where you might need to have to lie convincingly, and she is the worst liar of all time. This business of Mrs. Clinton, did you wipe the server clean? You mean wipe it with a cloth? I don't understand. I'm just a girl. I don't understand how these digital things work. You mean wipe it with a cloth? Ha ha ha! It's treason and it's incompetence. But you know, it's like I saw one of these memes, one of these picture memes the other day. I saw two of them. I wish I had them loaded. I didn't. One of them is a picture of Bill and Hillary walking, and she's got this very serious face, and he's looking at her, and it says, so when you go to prison, that means it's okay for me to date, right? And the other one is a picture of her saying, I don't know how to run an email. I don't know how to operate two BlackBerries. Please elect me as president of the United States of America. So it's treason and it's incompetence and it's felonious behavior. And this is the thing. And this is where Ted Cruz could just crucify her. He'd be an attorney and he would say, Mr. Clinton, we're not having a discussion about whether or not these emails were classified. That's moot. That's not what the regulation says. It doesn't matter if you were right, and every single email that you kept is about yoga classes. It's against the law to keep emails about yoga classes because you are required to turn all of this in. It doesn't matter if you're right. You're still guilty, and you know you're guilty. And the reason you did it, we all know, the reason you had your own server was because you didn't want these on State Department servers, because if they're on State Department servers, it's true that they are secure, and it's true that the country won't be nuked by people who get this delicate information. But if it's on State Department servers, it's subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. People can request it. They can get at it. If it's on the Clinton server in a bathroom in a walk-up in New York, then no one can touch it. She can just say, piss off. Yeah, you don't get to read my emails just because I'm a public servant. She's in real trouble. And this is the kind of messaging thing that I'm good at, is this kind of thing where you basically construct an argument in such a way that there is no reply to the argument. You're done. You're just done. No. I'm not claiming the atom bombs. I'm not quoting people who are pacifists saying they shouldn't have dropped the bombs. When you're quoting the guy who led the attack on Pearl Harbor and the guy who was in charge of the defense of the Japanese mainland, when you quote them saying that we stopped because of the bomb, then you're done. You're done. You can't win this. And Ted Cruz has the mind for this without question. He's got the legal mind for it. What I think I might be able to help him with is just simply crafting the rhetoric of the message and putting it in a way that people get. It's just very simple. Which one of the, since you're obviously above this law, please tell the American people now, before we elect you, what other laws you're above. And then be quiet. Where does she go from here? Nowhere. I'm not above the law. Ma'am, you're above this law. You're above this statute. You're above federal statute 2649.3. You're above that statute. Clearly you are, because you're standing here free today when everybody else would be in jail. And we all know it. So if you're above this law, what other laws are you above? I think we deserve to know that. I'd give up a question on global warming for that in a heartbeat. And see, the thing that can help guys with Ted Cruz is that Ted, being a decent man, doesn't understand the complete bastardliness of these opponents of ours and how dirty they fight. And so basically my response to Ted would be, Ted, the way to think about the debates is not a way to punish Hillary or whoever, or not just to Ted, to anybody. You need to understand that your 3-minute response during the debate is the only time between now and the inauguration when you will be able to say what you want to say with everybody watching and nobody doing the spin on it. And if it means you give up the question in order to make a point, do it. And by the way, say it. Oh, hold on, Senator. Well, this question is not about Hillary Clinton's emails. It's about global climate change. I understand it's about global climate change, but you swine make sure that we don't ever get to say anything ever without you doing this. So my 2 minutes are the only chance I have to talk to the American people without the filter of you, Candy. So shut up. Not talking to you. You're a journalist. You're a quote journalist. You're a member of the Democratic Party audiovisual department. I'm going to give you as much respect and time as I would give to any other dweeb who's teeing up the movie for the science class this afternoon. I'm talking directly to the American people, and you're not going to stop me this time. You tried it last time. You're not getting away with it again. That's what I would do. All right. Who else? Anybody else back there got a question?
I've got one.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, Hillary Clinton is president. What does 2020 look like?
Oh my God. The question is, worst case scenario, Hillary Clinton is president. What does 2020 look like? It's actually, I think it's I think it's a trick question, to be honest with you, because if Hillary Clinton is elected, the calendar based on Jesus Christ is going to go out the window. There will not be a year 2020. Will be Hillary Clinton. 4 years after Hillary Clinton will be in year 3 of the burning rats on spits over tires age. It'll be the age of the collapse. I've heard somebody say, it might have been Jeremy again, he's got a lot of great ideas, that guy, said that he thinks that there's still a real good, that Hillary's necessary in the way that George H.W. Bush was necessary after the Reagan years, where you had the real deal, then you had kind of the half deal, and after 3 terms, people are so sick of it, they can't take it anymore. I don't think she's going to get there, and I just don't think she's going to get there. Anybody who saw her when she was asked about the server, anybody who could see, it's the worst lying I've ever seen. It's just gigantic signs that said guilty just hanging from her. And her jokes, the joke about Snapchat and the joke about, hey, I'm just chilling in San Francisco. She looked like she was 1,000 years old, and she sounded like she was 2,000 years old. She just doesn't have it. And if we had any sense at all, we would be running, I'm not answering your question specifically because I can't bear to imagine it. It's just more than I can tolerate right now in my current state. But, she just is just so awful. And she's so old, and Bernie's so old. We ought to be hammering that. It's like, man, let me just say, I don't want to tear too much into the Democratic Party because I don't want to give their leading candidates heart attacks. You got to be careful at that age, the slightest start could cause any kind of things, and you're certainly not taking very good care of yourself. So let me buffer this as much as I can, Mrs. Clinton. And we the thing that's so awful about it is it looks like Cruz will fight. It looks like Carly will destroy that woman. Carly would rip her to pieces. And the thing that's so heartbreaking about it all is they would have ripped Obama to pieces too if they'd done it. If John McCain had not decided 6 weeks before the election that who is he to stand in the way of the first black president. Might have told us about that, John. Some people were still voting for you even though you weren't voting for yourself. He probably voted for Obama. And if Romney had come up in favor of wealth creation and in favor of all these other things that he claims to believe in and represent, then Obama wouldn't have been elected and he wouldn't have been reelected. We don't fight. We know why, We're beaten up. We didn't attack Obama because he's black. They don't want to attack Hillary because she's a woman. And the country's going down the tube. So as I said on this show before, I'd rather be despised than lose the country, frankly, me personally. It's more important to me to live in a free country than it is to worry about what people think about me. But if she is elected, then it'll be just more of the same, right? And then kids who have been, were 18 when Obama was elected, so they're 26 when Hillary's elected, and they're 30. They've gone from 18 to 30 with economic growth of 1%. It's the new normal. Of course they live home with their parents. Of course they don't have their own apartments. Of course they don't have jobs. Of course they work part-time. Of course they're unemployed. Of course, they can't afford the things that their parents could afford. That's the new normal. It will not be 2 terms for Hillary Clinton. Of that, I'm completely sure. But I don't think it's going to be 1 term. I don't think she's going to make it to the primary. And frankly, if she doesn't make it to the primary, I don't see how we lose this election, although God knows I've been amazed by the circular firing squad in the past. Hillary's only in the fight still because there's 30 years of Clinton lovers. People first saw her in 1992 and got to be big backers ever then, and they've hung their entire hopes on Hillary Clinton. And if she goes away, is it going to be Bernie Sanders? I mean, Bernie Sanders will appeal to 20% of the population. Bernie Sanders is barking mad, and he's a 100-years-old white guy. This racial identity politics, which I hate so much, cuts 2 ways. If it's Bernie Sanders, or if it's Bernie Sanders, let's just say Hillary drops out. If it's Bernie Sanders and you've got Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, then you've got a young Hispanic, and a young woman against this old white woman. You want to play this game? We can play this game too. We'll play this game. Why are you so old and white, Bernie? Why did you just, I don't know why Bernie Sanders didn't die much earlier from just standing out in the rain, looking up at the raindrops like a turkey and just drowning. The level of stupidity that this guy exhibits. Let me just say this I'll say this one thing about Bernie Sanders. And I mean this, actually. I think Bernie actually believes this stuff. It's nonsense, but I think he actually believes it. And that gets him some points from me. Barack Obama doesn't believe in anything other than Barack Obama. And Hillary Clinton is just doing this to show Bill. I mean, honest to God, you can tell that she doesn't like this. You can tell she doesn't like people, not just campaigning. She just doesn't like people. She doesn't like dealing with people. She's not a likable person. She's not a happy person. She's a mean-spirited, thin-skinned person. She's all of the corruption and deception of the Clintons with none of the charm, and she's doing it to show Bill. She'll show him. She'll get back at him, and I don't think Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders believes it. Hillary doesn't believe in it. If Hillary Clinton thought that getting elected, if she thought she could be elected by being a Tea Party candidate, and she thought that would actually do it, she'd switch because she didn't believe in anything, and Obama doesn't believe in anything. Obama actually does believe in things. He believes in Obama, and he believes in bringing this country down. And I don't think Jeb Bush much believes in anything either, if you really want to know. I've not ever heard Jeb Bush make a statement. I've never heard Mitch McConnell make a statement. I've never heard John Boehner make a statement that was about principles that he's going to stick to one way or another. Never heard that. I've heard them talk about policies and votes, but I've never heard them talk about principles. I'll tell you what, why don't we do one more? We could go longer, but you know what? The AC's off in here, and it's been off for a while, and it's getting a little toasty in here with all these lovely people, and I think I can start to see some mold growing on the carrots back there. Look at that, by the way. I mean, it bears some looking, but look at that. See, by the way, back to call signs. The only call sign I came up with that I would have liked, that you never pick your own, but if I could have picked one, it would have been ray gun. I think ray gun would have been a really cool call sign because it's got the Reagan kind of a thing. But look at this. There's 2 ray guns right there. Kirk's got a phaser on us. Astro Girl has got a blaster on us. And over here in the other corner, there's another mannequin holding a phaser. This is ray gun central, man. So, if you want to be holding ray guns, this is the place. Somehow it looks like there's a little lag appeared in the video. That's a little disturbing. How about if we do one more and we'll call it a night? Well, I'll get on out of here. Go. Okay, hang on a second. Yes, sir.
On the subject of Reagan, since I was born after he came and went through the presidency, can you give me a snapshot of what America looked like under Reagan?
I can, but I'd be giving you the wrong snapshot because, like you, I wasn't born when Reagan was president. I was born in 1959, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have a clue. I was a theater major at the University of Florida on the night that 1st November in 1980, And I was Fritz will remember this because Fritz was there, not at the same show, but I was in the only I've only been in 2 plays in my life, and I was playing Tony Kirby and You Can't Take It With You at Gainesville Little Theater. Great little theater in Gainesville. I went to hold hands with this girl who wanted me some support during the audition. There were 75 women and 2 men, and they said, "Would you mind reading this part?" I said, "I'd be happy to." I got the part. She didn't. That was the end of that. But to answer your question, I started out wanting to be a fighter pilot and shoot down communists. It's a worthy goal. But next thing I know, I'm surrounded by people who were just theater people, and everything was emotion, and they didn't have, as I've said 100 times, I passionately believed in things I knew nothing about. I thought Reagan was a senile old lunatic, and I thought that because everybody told me that he was. Oh, you should see him when he's not on camera. He's just this dolt. He's just this actor. Oh God, what a catastrophe for the country. I hope, I didn't have any clue. I didn't read anything he'd ever written. I certainly didn't know that he toured the country in the 60s for General Electric, speaking to 7 people sometimes. I've spoken to 7 people. I remember one time I spoke to 4 people in the back of not exaggerating, it was the back of a Jerry's Deli. I was up in the upper room. It was loud as hell. It was some event. I was just getting started. They weren't paying me. I was selling DVDs of What We Believe DVDs. And there were 4 people there. And I remember thinking, oh man, 4 people. It's like, no, Ronald Reagan speak to 7 people. I can speak to 4 people. Absolutely. It's just another chance to get the message right. But he sat in his trailer and wrote about things. And Ronald Reagan did. This is the thing that's amazing about Ronald Reagan. Before he became Ronald Reagan, when he was learning how to be Ronald Reagan in the 60s on these tours, he went on these tours, and he was speaking tour for General Electric for almost 2 years. But he didn't just speak, he actually listened. He listened. He listened to people, and he listened to what they knew, and he didn't just listen to their problems like a politician. He listened to their wisdom. And I think the thing Reagan got out of that was the thing I got out of this real early, was the idea that it doesn't matter how unglamorous this particular event is. I mean, it could be guys like Bill Maher would look at the Central Wisconsin Women's Republican Committee as the squarest of the square, and you go in there and you see sometimes there have been events where people are wearing like farmers' overalls, and guys like Maher would go, these guys are idiots, they don't know anything about international relations. Well, first of all, maybe they do, but even if they don't, there's not a person in there, Bill Maher or whoever, or Michael Moore, these guys get rushed in and out of their events. There's not one person in that room, there's not one person in the room right now here, who doesn't know 100 things more than I do. 100 things, at least 100 things, maybe thousands of things. That guy in the overalls probably knows a lot more about duck decoys, or knows a lot more about how to store milk or pasteurize milk. He certainly knows how to grow food, which is a more useful thing to do than flap your jaws, frankly, if things go south. I'd rather know a farmer than know a rhetorician if the food supply is out. So that realization that the wisdom of the American people is this enormous reservoir is what made Reagan Reagan. He had the sense to listen to people, not just talk about their problems, but talk about solutions. Like what works. Well, I have a plan to do this, and well, Mr. Reagan's great idea is not going to work because here's why. And he listened. He didn't come in there. And somebody said this early in the Obama administration. It might have been Peggy Noonan, but I don't think it was. But it was somebody like Peggy Noonan, who said somebody had worked with Reagan, and they were listening to Obama speak and just basically lecture us and hector us about all the things we need to do. And we need to do this, and you need to do this, and Americans, you need to do this, you need to do this, and you need to eat more and more organic foods and use less carbon and buy solar panels, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I wrote for Reagan for 8 years, and Ronald Reagan would have fired me if I'd submitted a speech telling the American people to do what I tell them. His job wasn't to tell the American people what to do. His job was to find out what the American people wanted and execute it as the chief executive of the country. What do you need? Okay, let's do that. And he was a servant of the people. That's really it. I can tell you this though, even though I voted for Walter Mondale in 1984 because he said he was going to raise taxes, I didn't pay any taxes. So what difference does it make to me? This is why it's so easy for me to defeat these liberals and these progressives in one-on-one debates, because I know how they don't think. Right? I know exactly how they don't think. They believe things because it seems, why are you in favor of raising taxes? Well, so all the poor people can get stuff. And you too, right? Well, okay. How much taxes you pay? None. So you're stealing from somebody, right? I didn't know that at the time, but I do now. But one thing I can tell you about, though, is because as I said all night long tonight, I never lost this this desire to be in the military, and I never lost this love of the military. And I have to tell you, I'd make a great Secretary of Defense because I actually know this stuff. I know it. I know everything in our arsenal. I know everything in their arsenal. I not only know what's in a attack sub, upgraded LA class sub. I know how they hunt. I know how they work. I love it. So the one thing I can tell you about that I did watch with my eyes open was the difference in the military between Carter and Reagan. I had friends who joined the military in, I want to say, in 1979 or 80, during the Carter years when we had just gotten out of Vietnam and the Democrats had given away the deal that protected the South, so it was turned into a defeat. And nobody joined the military, and nobody wanted to join the military. It was just associated with loss and incompetence. And Jimmy Carter in 1979 tries to rescue these hostages, and we fly 4 or 5 helicopters, four helicopters out to the desert, and they crash. 2 of them crash into a C-130, I want to say it was, in that Desert Eagle, was it? And we couldn't even land a helicopter in the desert without killing 20 of our guys and leaving them there, by the way. The first thing we saw the next day was a picture of Iranian guards with bodies of American servicemen burned to a crisp in the wreckage of like turbofans and rotor blades. That's Jimmy Carter's military. And canceled the B-1 and did everything. So Ronald Reagan didn't just come in with the conservative Republican Congress to buy more stuff. Ronald Reagan started talking about America being a shiny city on a hill, and started talking about freedom, and started talking about the fact that there are people who go to bed at night who are not sure if they're going to be woken up because some guy's going to come in with a gun and take his whole family out and put them up against a wall and shoot him in the back of the head. And he said, we got to stop this. And he didn't just give the military better toys. Desert One, thanks, Foghorn. He didn't just give them better toys. He gave them a reason. He gave them a reason to fight, a reason to be proud of what they were. And I watched that military change like that. I mean, like that. People made Reagan paid a big price for Grenada. You know, I mean, Grenada is a speck on the map. As the first action with Ronald Reagan as president was the invasion of Grenada. And people made a big deal of, oh, big man, you know, you're taking the most powerful military in the world against this tiny little island. But that's not what was interesting about Grenada. Grenada was the first time that they wore the modern helmets, for example, the Kevlar helmets. Grenada was the first time things actually started to look like they were going to work. It was the time when things started actually looking like, oh, the Army and the Air Force are talking to each other? You mean they're not running into each other, literally crashing into each other? You mean you've got Air Force guys flying cover over Army guys, the Navy supplying either special forces or they're, grounds, they're doing artillery missions from the battleships or whatever? Everybody's working together? Yeah. The one thing I didn't get to talk about is the second part of the trip, which I kind of glossed over because the first part was so much fun. But the next day I went to, Foghorn took me to CENTCOM, which is Central Command at MacDill Air Force Base. CENTCOM used to be the rump end of military commands. It's where nothing happened, right? All the action was in Europe. We're going to fight the Russians, or have to deal with the Chinese in the Pacific, so, Pacific theater. But now everything that happens in CENTCOM. All ISIL's in CENTCOM, Iraq's in CENTCOM, Iran's in CENTCOM, Afghanistan's in CENTCOM. It's all CENTCOM. It's the center of it's basically bounded by Egypt and Israel all the way out to the stands, and it's the suck. That's it. That's what I was looking for. CENTCOM is the suck. CENTCOM is the part of the world that just sucks, and there's nothing redeeming about it. You can't count Israel as part of the operational theater, but CENTCOM is where everything sucks. And that's where the trouble is, and I got to sit in the JOC, in the Joint Operations Command or Joint Operations Center, I guess, and I had to wait in the hall for about 20 minutes while they basically declassified everything that was, because they do tours. I do pay for the facility after all, but it took them about 10-15 minutes to get everything sensitive off the screens, and then I went in, and it looked a bit like. It looked a bit like a kind of a low-rent sport book at Vegas, Lots and lots of screens, lots of desks, lots of people sitting there talking quietly. But they are destroying these people. I'm not going to tell you the details of what it was said. I'm going to do an afterburner on it. I'm going to run that script past Foghorn because I want to, even though it was a declassified briefing, I know which side I'm on, right? I know which team I'm on. But I will tell you a couple things. First of all, the people were friendly. They were normal. The kind of people you just see at a Sonny's barbecue, sitting around with the family, Women, a woman major, I think, was chief of operations, and another woman in the Navy was her second in command that day, and everybody's friendly, and they're joking, they're kidding around. And then I don't want to tell you how many times a day, but it's multiple times a day. Multiple times a day. They are looking down from heaven where we live, looking down on these animals, either trying to murder hostages or gang raping women that they're going to kill or whatever. And they sit there with a general and they say, do we know who this guy is? Yes. Are we actually seeing what we think we're seeing? Yes. Are there anybody innocent sitting around? No. Goodbye. Bye now. So long. Boom. They're not here anymore. It's so bad for them now that they can't go out in daytime or nighttime, because if they leave their houses in the day or the night, they're going to turn into those infrared milk bombs. They're going to just be a little dark shape moving across a white background, and then like somebody blew up some milk. Just that's the warm parts of them going all over the countryside. And I am totally in favor of this. These are the worst people in the world. Some of these guys had to watch things because sometimes they've got, Predator is a drone. It was a reconnaissance drone. They put a couple little Hellfire missiles underneath it. But you fire 2 of those and you're out of ordnance. And you're waiting for the next drone to come on station, but you can still see what the thing sees. And they're seeing these people committing these atrocities, sawing people's heads off, gang raping women. There's nothing they can do. They don't have any weapons over target right now. But then they do get weapons over target. And then they go and they make these guys go away. And I've never been prouder of anybody in my life, ever. I've never been prouder of it. And so I'll wrap up with the Reagan thing. Ronald Reagan understood there's a difference between good guys and evil guys. And that if you are going to take young women out of a village, take them out, beat them senseless, rape them with 20 or 30 guys, and then cut their heads off, those are not the same as us. Those are not the same as the guys who are at CENTCOM. CENTCOM doesn't do that because they're hung with CENTCOM. It's not what they do at night. The guys at CENTCOM and the fighter pilots and the people that launch the strikes on these swine, if we'd been sitting there in the middle of this ceremony, drunk off our butts in the middle of the night in that hangar at Knight Field in Tampa, and we'd heard an actual scream come from across the harbor where the container ship was, a woman screaming, an actual scream, there would be 16 cars doing 50, 60 miles an hour and multiple calls to the sheriff's department. Guys would be in the air looking for this. We'd be over there in a heartbeat. You want to take this stuff seriously. They would have gone over there, and I would have been with them because I'm the same kind of guy. We've gone on over there. We wouldn't have come home until we found out who was doing the screaming, right? It's not the same person. It's not the same kind of people. There are good guys and there are bad guys, and they're bad guys. And Ronald Reagan was not afraid to say it, and that's why everybody loved him, because he said, no, this Soviet Union is not just an alternate way of looking at things, and it's not just another way of getting things done. People live in misery and fear, and that's why they all drink so much. Why do you think there's such alcoholics over there? There's no hope there for those people. There's no life. There's no future. There's nothing. They're drunk because I'd be drunk too. If I lived in that world, I'd be drinking all the time. It's the only way I'd get through the day. And Ronald Reagan said, we're better than they are. He's right. We are better than they are. We're better than they are in every way. And this is the close, I think, for this. This is the thing that so interests me about this idea of happy warriors. I hung out with these guys. They're active duty fighter pilots, active duty bomber and tanker pilots. They're the most fun guys you ever want to meet. They're all family guys. They pray before dinner, We went out to Sunday's barbecue, a little prayer before dinner, We're going to have our ribs. They hang out with their kids. They go to the mall. They go to church. They have fun. They laugh. They joke around. Everybody's happy. You would think that in combat, in battle, as warriors, you would think that they'd be far inferior to young, hardened, vicious, brutal men who rape for fun and who kill people with knives by grabbing them by the back of the head and just slitting your throat. You would think that a guy who had that kind of brutality, who was so hardened to battle, who was so in love with death, you would think that kind of soldier would make our kind of soldiers, you think they clean our clocks. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. Those guys want to die, and we're going to help them. Our guys want to come home, we're going to help them do that too. A guy who volunteers to go and fight evil and who's got a family and who wants to come home, that's the deadliest soldier there is, and I ought to know because I just saw a bunch of them. And that's what Ronald Reagan did. Before that, the U.S. military looked an awful lot more like the Soviet military, or the Iraqi military for that matter. I don't know when conscription went away. It was probably before Carter, but I want to say it was around 73, 74. It was right around Carter's time. But when I was in college, we had to register for the draft because I graduated high school in 1977. The shooting stopped in 72, so I was the whole time I was growing up, I was 12, 13 years old and looking at TV, and 248 Americans killed this week in Vietnam, and he was thinking, another couple of years, pal, you're gonna be old enough to go. And what Reagan understood, and what's so wonderful about the military now is these are volunteers. And I talked to some of these guys. I talked with Foghorn about this a lot. When they're looking at things in real time. Take the Osama bin Laden raid, for example. We've got a house and we've got a tall guy, right? We got a house, we got a tall guy, we've got couriers coming into this house. Something's going on at this house. But we don't have a picture of Osama bin Laden with a big sign saying, hey, come and get me, you suckers, We got a tall guy in a yard and a house, which is 100 yards away from the Pakistani military academy. So, if you're going to go in there, you're going to have a bunch of guys with rifles, and you're going to have maybe another 1,000 guys with rifles 100 yards away. So we're going to have to send some guys. And if we don't do this exactly right, we may lose some of those guys. We may conceivably lose all of those guys. So the point that I was discussing with Foghorn about this is, it's one thing to order those guys to go, but what they would do routinely is they'll say, they would go to the SEALs, they'd go to the guys who are going to get on the helicopters with the guns in their hands. They would walk up to them and say, hey, we think there's a 60% chance that we got Osama bin Laden in this house, but we don't have 100% certainty, and we don't know exactly what will happen if these guys come out swarming. It could get a little dicey down there. And the SEALs, to a man, say, good enough for me. I'll go if it's 10%. If you think it's him, I'm going. And when you got a guy who's ready to give his life for that because he understands it, it's a different thing. It's a different kind of thing to send people like that than it is to order some poor schmuck who didn't want to be there in the first place, would rather be studying medicine someplace or poetry or whatever. These guys are warriors. They sign up for it. That's what they want to do. They're professionals. These guys, so the thing about these guys, these Air Force pilots, these are professional fighter pilot warriors. I'm a wannabe. I get to play around. I get to be seen with them, and I get to fly my little private airplane around and pretend it's a real jet. But these guys actually go when people shooting at them and they may not come back. And they volunteer for it. And they volunteer for it because they think it's important. And it is important. And that's really what Ronald Reagan did, He really established the moral basis for military strength and action. And he was mocked for it by people like me. And that's why whenever I go to the Reagan Library, I go out to the back. The library, the Reagan Library is spectacular. It's giant glass panels. It's the best presidential library by 100 miles. And Air Force One is there. The big silver bird of freedom is over your head. It's sitting right there. It's about to land on you. It's spectacular. There's an F-14 outside, and there's all this great stuff, great exhibits. But way in the back, kind of in a corner, is a little tiny little circular thing, and there's a little pathway, and I've flown over it a bunch. The first time I took the long easy out, I took it over the Reagan Library to say hi to Ronald Reagan. It's the first flight I made when I got the plane back. And in this little area is where Ronald Reagan is buried. You can look down, you can see Camarillo and the ocean and everything. And every time I go out there, I've been asked to speak out there a couple times, I go out by myself and I apologize. I apologize for being such a dick and for saying the things I said when I didn't know anything about anything. It's not like I made a reasonable decision or a reason. I didn't know anything. I was just shooting off my mouth like everybody else is. So that's what Ronald Reagan did, I think. Now, before we close up, we got, we're all covered in sweat here. It's a little toasty in here, but we have some business that we need to attend to, because 100 episodes is simply incredible. It's absolutely amazing to me that anybody would watch that, but apparently you people have too much time on your hands. So we have a TSL episode guide that we've been promising to reveal on the 100th episode. Many of these people here were involved with it, and some people who aren't here were involved with it, but they've taken every single one of the 100 episodes, some of them in 3-hour shows, and they've broken it down into topics with time code, and it's all database, all searchable, and all that other stuff. And I just want to read some names of the people who were involved with that. What's his name? Eisenhower. Eisenfire, who is outside the door right now with the flaming sword of retribution. He's actually not here tonight, but he was a big part of getting that thing organized. Some of these Tiemens named Zechariah Tiemens is there, Alan Pontius, Joshua Tiemens, Paul Sullivan. There he is. Michelle Tongyai, who's a great friend. Max Wild, another great guy, and Walter Almeida. Put that together. To say that I'm grateful is the understatement of the age. I'm astonished is a better word. I'm blown away, actually. And we did put together the ebook. We had so much going on here. We've had some real problems here in-house trying to get things delivered. But the ebook is also done, and I'm going to send the link out to that in mass emails. And Eisenfire had a lot to do with that too. But Mona Lisa Foster also had a tremendous. Mona Lisa here. There she is. Look, there she is waving. Hey, thank you so much. Took my horrible grammar, spelling mistakes, everything else, got it cleaned up, proofread, formatted, and also she and Eisenfire also had a lot to do with the fact that what's a first-person script on video with pictures in the background takes a fair amount of rewriting and restructuring to make it a good read, and it certainly is that. And it's beautiful. It looks great. I wish I'd had my first book done with you guys. Cindy Lucin, who's probably watching. Cindy Lou, hi, Cindy. It's always good to hear from you, and thank you for everything. Matt Hindelang, Kevin Jordan, Ray Schneider, and the Belcheck boys. Thanks, dudes. Thanks very much for everything, really, honestly. Yes, bravo. Large round of applause for yourself. And we have a CFR gifted wrench here, and we actually have visitors just for this one event from Prosper, Texas. Whoever you are, Prosper, Texas. There we go. Yeah, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Arizona, San Francisco, Santa Clarita, and locals including Orange County and Lakeview Terrace, all the way from Lakeview Terrace. We got people here tonight. So I think these live shows are fun. They're certainly not something I can do every week, but I'd love to do them at least a couple times a season, maybe once a month, something like that. But we did want to make sure on this first one that, that the people who've done so much behind the scenes got to be a big part of it. And at 2 hours and 28 minutes of recorded time and 2 hours and 45 minutes of stream time, I think we'll probably call it a day because it's getting pretty damn warm and toasty in here. As usual, thanks to everybody who's been a part of this. Thanks for all you BillWhittle.com members, long-suffering people that you are. Thanks especially to the hardcore Strata Loungers and Mike who put so much of this together. Ian, where are you, big boy? Ian Branson, who's been such a big part of our logistics on Speakeasy, brought all the stuff up here, all the food and everything. Ian Branson does so much behind the scenes to make this thing happen. Not just this show, the whole Bill Whittle experience is just a giant unsung hero back there. And this particular episode I'd like to dedicate to my brothers down there at Nightfield down in Tampa. Never have I seen a more pathetic group of lowlifes, incompetents, and miserable pilots. There's so much you're going to learn when I get down there, when I get a chance to finally take the gloves off and show you boys how to fly actual airplanes. But until then, just try not to put them in the ground or the ocean or the bay or whatever. And let me come on down there, and you can sit on the stool in the parachute harnesses, and listen to me for a few minutes. You'll live a lot longer, trust me. Foghorn especially, greatest single day of my life. And all of you guys down there was a big part of it. Greatest single day of my life. I plan to come down in my own airplane and fly some aerobatics and some close formation with guys that know what they're doing. Hopefully guys who are skilled enough to get out of my way when I screw up. Because I want to be around for a while myself. It's just too much fun to be had. That's 100 episodes of this silliness. And what do I say but thanks? So thanks. Be careful out there. And keep fighting, even though it's times when it seems like it's just absolutely impossible. You just got to get up another day. There's no alternative other than to become one of the overlords, who have humans toiling in their underground sugar caves. And we just can't have that. We just can't. Not here. We can give that to the Russians, and the Chinese can live that way, but not here. We got too much to worry about. And we got two good people who are out there defending this country to give it up on the inside. So we'll see you next time. And again, thanks for everything. It's been an incredible 100 episodes, and we'll see what we're going to do for episode 200. Take care now. Bye. Oh, there we go. Hey, bravo. All right. Keep it rolling through the slate. Oh, hey.